Today was my awakening day. I stood at the edge of the crowd, wearing my old faded uniform with worn-out shoes, watching Su Chun step onto the stage. Lightning filled the sky around him. Thunder shook the ground. Everyone screamed and cheered. SSS level. Heaven Thunder Master. My family cried happy tears. My sisters jumped and hugged each other. My adoptive parents smiled with pride. Top universities flew in from across the country just to offer him mansions and scholarships. I watched all of it from the corner. Alone. Then it was my turn. I walked through the crowd. People moved away from me like I was dirty. They whispered and laughed before I even touched the stone. I placed my hand on the awakening stone. The light appeared above my head. D level. Blood enhancement. Health doubled. The whole field burst into laughter. My sisters laughed loudest. My mother looked embarrassed. My father showed nothing. Just cold, empty eyes. Suchin didn't laugh. He just looked at me with that quiet expression. I understood it perfectly. It said, "What could you possibly have that compares to me?" I looked down at my hands standing there on that stage, surrounded by thousands of laughing voices. D level. Health doubled. 18 years of my life, and this is what I got. Then a strange message appeared in my mind. System activated. You have one chance to change one character in your ability description. I stared at my ability description after the system message appeared. Blood enhancement. Health doubled. One character to change. Just one. I looked at the number, 2. My mind started racing. Change it to 3? To 5? To 10? Then one thought hit me hard. What if I changed 200 million? Health increased to 100 million times. The moment I thought it, a golden light flashed. Modification complete. I pulled up my stats panel. Level 1. Health, 10 billion. I stood completely still. My father is one of the 5 strongest people in all of China, level 89, and his base health is 90 billion. And me, just awakened, level 1, already had 10 billion health. I said nothing. I showed nothing. I just walked off the stage. The laughing continued below. When I passed my family, my sisters mocked me one by one. My mother told me to go home before I embarrassed them more. My father turned his back and walked towards Suchun. Suchun gave me kind words with a warm smile, but I knew that face. I had studied it for 18 years. The kinder it looked, the colder what hid behind it. I went back to my room. The basement room. Damp, dark, with one tiny window. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about that number. 10 billion. Then my door got kicked open. My sister told me mother was calling me upstairs. The whole family sat in the living room waiting. My mother spoke first, telling me I had ruined the family's honor. That Su Chan was being fought over by every top university in the country while I was nothing. My sisters added their own words, each one sharper than the last. Then I spoke. From today, I am cutting all ties with the Su family. The room went silent. They shouted. They laughed. They told me I would be nothing without the family name. Su Chun grabbed my arm and whispered for me to apologize, that I was being foolish. His face looked genuinely worried. It was a perfect performance. I freed my arm and stepped back. I looked at each of them one last time. My sisters with their sneers. My mother with her anger. My father with his cold, empty face. And Su Chun, whose eyes beneath all that fake concern held something I recognized clearly. Satisfaction. I turned and walked to the door. My father called out and asked if I was sure. I said yes. He told me that once I walked out, I was no longer a Su. Then he added quietly that if things got hard, I could come back. I did not turn around. No need, I said, and I walked out. Standing at the gate of that big bright house, I looked back once. 18 years. I had spent 18 years inside those walls. I felt no sadness, no regret, just light. I looked up at the stars and walked forward into the night. I walked through the dark until I found a bench in a park. I sat down and opened my phone. I needed to understand the rules of this world properly. The old Su Lin's memories were there, but most of them were just scenes of being hurt and humiliated. I needed to think clearly. I searched for Sky Tower Encyclopedia and started reading. The Sky Tower appeared on Earth 100 years ago. It has 99 floors. Every time you clear one floor, your level goes up by 1. The highest anyone has ever reached is floor 88. The tower opens every Sunday. You get 1 attempt per week, 1 floor at a time. If you fail, you can never enter again. Your level gets locked forever. Every 10 levels, you get a chance to choose a passive skill. The harder the trial you pick, the stronger the skill you get. But you only get one chance, so be careful. Killing monsters outside the tower gives you points, not levels. Points can be used in the shop to buy equipment and supplies. I read through the level growth numbers carefully. At level 81 to 90, each level gives 10 billion health. Then I looked at the 5 strongest people in the world. All level 89. All SSS ability. My father was one of them. I closed the encyclopedia and opened my own panel. Level 1. Health, 10 billion. Attack, 10. 10 billion health at level 1. That was equal to someone around level 80 with no equipment or buffs at all. I looked up the first floor of the tower. 5 ordinary flame dogs. Level 1. Each with 100 health and 10 attack. Clear them all within 1 hour to pass. The failure rate was 3%. Small number. But every person who failed lost their future forever. So everyone prepared seriously before entering. I might be a little different from everyone else. My class group chat had over 999 unread messages. I scrolled through them quietly in the dark. I sat on a park bench and read through the class group chat. Everyone was excited about tomorrow. The tower opens every Sunday. My classmates were talking about their abilities, making teams, planning strategies. Then someone asked about me. They laughed. D level. Useless ability. One person said I had bullied Su-chin for years. Others agreed immediately. Nobody questioned it. I stared at those messages for a moment. I bullied Su-chin. The real Su-lin spent 18 years being framed and blamed for things Su-chin did. And now even strangers believed it without a second thought. I closed the chat without replying. There was nothing to explain. Words change nothing. Only strength matters. I looked at the first floor guide again. 5 dogs. 100 health each. My health is 10 billion. I could stand completely still and let them bite me for a year without losing a single point. My attack is only 10, but each dog only has 100 health. 10 hits per dog. Easy. I opened the shop. 0 points. Nothing I could buy. I checked my money. 1,200 left. In this city that is almost nothing. I searched the map for cheap rooms and found the old Eastern District. Poor area. Bad reputation. But rent was only 600 a month. I took the subway and found the building. Cracked walls, broken hallway lights, wires hanging everywhere. The landlady looked me over and asked my level and ability. I told her D level and nothing more. She didn't ask further. D level is too common to care about. 600 a month. 1 deposit, 1 month up front. Exactly 1,200. I handed over everything I had. Room 207. Old wooden door. 1 bed, 1 table, 1 chair. Peeling walls. Shared bathroom. Window that let in cold air. I was satisfied. It was better than the basement at the Su family house. That place was damp, moldy, freezing in winter, boiling in summer. This room at least had a window. I lay on the bed and opened the floor 2 guide. 6 monsters. 5 charging boars and 1 healing slime. The slime heals nearby monsters 30 health every second. My attack at level 2 will be 20. I hit for 20, slime heals 30. The monster actually gains health. Impossible to kill without dealing with the slime first. But the boars will block the path to the slime. I can't reach it. To clear floor 2 alone, I need at least 40 attack. I have nothing except high health. Health means nothing if I cannot kill the monsters in time. I need equipment. A level 2 sword costs 500 points. I have 0 points. After clearing floor 1 tomorrow, I need to go outside the city and grind monsters. Level 1 common monsters give 1 point each. I need to kill 500 of them for 1 sword. It would take time, but I had 1 week. I closed my phone and shut my eyes. Tomorrow, floor 1 first. Then go hunt outside the city. 1 week to earn enough points. Simple plan. Let's begin. The tower entrance was packed. Thousands of people filled the square in front of the giant blue gate floating in the air. Students in new equipment, adventurers in combat gear, reporters with cameras, and powerful older awakeners who came to watch their children. Then the crowd split open like water. Su-chin arrived wearing a silver combat suit that probably cost tens of thousands of points. A jeweled sword hung at his side. His family walked behind him. My father at the back, and the whole crowd stepped aside just for him. Su-chin walked straight to a VIP entrance. 5 seconds after he stepped through the gate, he walked back out. 5 seconds. The crowd exploded. Record broken. Everyone screaming his name. Then it was my turn. I walked to the gate in my old faded jacket with no equipment and no teammate. The crowd noticed me immediately. A staff member asked if I was really going in alone with no gear. I said yes. He sighed and told me I could run back to the gate if things got bad. At least that way I would only fail, not die. I stepped through. Inside was a burnt wasteland smelling of sulfur. 5 fire dogs were staring at me. Level 1. 100 health each. Attack of 10. All 5 jumped on me at once. I felt nothing. Each bite took 10 from my 10 billion health. I just stood there and started punching. I did not defend. I just kept hitting. When one tried to run, I grabbed its leg and kept going until it dropped. Then the next. Then the next. 5 minutes later, all 5 were dead. My health had dropped by 500 points total. The system chimed. Floor 1 cleared. Time, 6 minutes. I appeared back outside in a golden light. The crowd went silent. Nobody spoke. Everyone just stared at the boy in the worn jacket who had walked in alone with no equipment and walked back out a winner. Then the questions started. He cheated. The tower glitched. He must have run away and failed. I looked at them calmly. If I ran away and failed, I said, would I come out in a gold light? Silence. Everyone knows the rules. Failed challengers come out in a different color. Gold means cleared. I turned and walked away without stopping. I passed my family without even glancing at them. My sisters stood with stiff faces and said nothing. My mother said nothing. My father watched me with an expression I could not quite read. Suchin watched too, his face warm and gentle as always. But his hand was quietly clenched into a fist. He used 5 seconds. I used 6 minutes. But I had D-level ability, no gear, and no help. I did not care what any of them thought. I was level 2 now. I had 7 days before the tower opened again, and I needed 500 points for a weapon to clear floor 2. I walked toward the city gates and headed outside to start hunting. I did not know that someone was already out there waiting to kill me. I spent the afternoon outside the city walls killing monsters one by one with my fists. Level 1 wild dogs. 1 point each. After 3 hours I had 50 points. My hands were sore from punching, so I bought a cheap iron sword from the shop for 100 points and kept going. Then the birds and insects went quiet. Footsteps. Human ones. More than one person. Su-chun walked out of the trees wearing his clean white clothes with that warm, gentle smile. Behind him was a middle-aged man in black combat gear. Level 21. A Su family guard. Su-chun said he came to find me because he was worried. Said he wanted me to come home. Said our parents would forgive me. I looked at him and asked what he really wanted. His smile slowly changed. The warmth drained out of it. What replaced it was something cold and amused. Fine, he said. I won't pretend anymore. He waved at the guard. The man moved faster than I could follow. Something hit my chest like a truck. I flew through the air and crashed into the ground, rolling several meters before stopping. My chest caved in. Blood everywhere. 200,000 damage. My health bar barely moved. But I looked completely destroyed on the outside. I closed my eyes and lay still. Suchin walked over and crouched beside me. He talked quietly, almost to himself. He said I was a hidden threat, that I was the real son and he was the adopted one, that someday the family might feel guilty and take me back. He could not allow that risk. He told me I was going to die here and he would make it look like a monster attack. He patted my face. Then he told the guard to clean things up. I grabbed his ankle and yanked hard. He crashed to the ground screaming. I pinned his chest with one hand and drove my sword into his stomach. Again, again, again. Blood everywhere. The guard hit me in the back. 200,000 damage each punch. 3 punches in a row. Over 1 million total damage lost. I did not let go. I kept stabbing. Finally, the guard grabbed Su-chun and dragged him away, throwing punches to push me back. I let them go. I stood there covered in blood, watching them disappear into the trees. I opened my panel. Health. 19.998 billion out of 20 billion. I wiped my sword on my clothes and turned back to keep hunting monsters. Back at the Su family house, the guard burst through the doors carrying Su-chun covered in blood. My mother screamed and dropped her teacup. My father came downstairs and his face went white. Su-chun opened his eyes just long enough to whisper that it was not my fault, that he had gone to talk to me, and I got too emotional. Then he passed out. My father said my name through his teeth like a curse. Find him. Turn this entire city upside down if you have to. Find him. I stopped walking toward the city gate. Going back meant walking into a trap. Su-chun would have already gone home and told his version of the story. Crying, forgiving me, saying I was just emotional. And my father would have believed every word. A full city search would already be starting. So I turned around and walked into the wilderness instead. Everyone knows the rule. Return before sunset or face the consequences. Some level 49 fighter once tried to spend a night outside. The next morning they found half his body. But I had no choice. Going back meant certain death. Staying outside at least gave me a chance. The first night was long. When it got dark, the monsters came in waves. First cats with glowing green eyes, dozens of them surrounding me at once. I stopped trying to dodge. I just crouched down, covered my head, and let them bite. 20 damage each hit. My health barely moved. Then I stood up and started cutting them down one by one. After the cats came dogs. After the dogs came wolves. After the wolves came bears. I swung my sword until my arms went numb and my grip split open. I never stopped. By dawn, I was standing in a field covered in the bodies of over 300 monsters. My clothes had no recognizable color anymore. My hair was matted with blood. I opened my panel. 1,247 points. Health just under 200 billion. I bought the percentage recovery potion for 1,000 points. 1% of my health restored. 2 billion health back in an instant. Full. I climbed into a large tree, found a thick branch, and fell asleep in 3 seconds. I woke up 4 hours later, starving. I found a quiet spot, made a fire, and roasted some monster meat. It tasted like nothing, but it filled my stomach. Then I walked carefully toward the city gate to see what was happening. There was a giant wanted poster with my face on it. 1 million points reward. The headline on every news channel said I had attacked Su Chen out of jealousy and stabbed him over 20 times without warning. My mother was quoted crying about how kind Su Chen always was to me. My sisters called me a white-eyed wolf. My father put the entire city on alert. The crowd standing around the poster all agreed I must be hiding somewhere inside the city. Nobody thought I was crazy enough to survive a night outside. I looked at the poster quietly, then walked away. Nobody noticed me. Just another ordinary kid in old clothes. I turned my jacket inside out and washed my face in a small river. Then I climbed back up into my tree and slept until afternoon. When I woke, I sat in the branches watching the open land below. A group of 7 or 8 people were hunting monsters in the distance. The girl leading them moved well. Clean sword strikes, good team coordination. She glanced toward my tree once, and I froze completely still inside the leaves. She looked for a moment, then went back to hunting. Just before sunset, her group packed up and headed back to the city. She glanced my direction one more time before leaving. But she saw nothing. I stayed in my tree as the sky turned dark again. I could not go back to the city. The moment I stepped through those gates, they would find me. So I turned northwest and started walking toward a place I had heard of in my memories. Evil Valley. A lawless place hidden behind 3 mountains and a poison mist. No rules except one. The Valley Master at level 88 said what goes. Anyone who caused trouble inside ended up dead. Even my father knew better than to go there looking for someone. 230 miles away. I had 247 points. Entry cost 1,000. I needed to earn the rest on the road. I walked through the night. The first night, I crossed a field of rocks packed with poisonous snakes. They covered my legs and body, biting constantly. I did not stop walking. I just dragged them along until they let go on their own. After the snakes came a forest full of bats. They wrapped around me so thick I could barely move. I kept walking anyway. The second night brought scorpions, ants, slugs, and centipedes covering the ground in every direction. I walked through them. I felt them crawling into my wounds. I kept moving. The third night, I crossed a swamp. Crocodiles latched onto my legs and spun. Rotting creatures grabbed my back. A giant python wrapped around my chest and squeezed until my ribs cracked and breathing hurt. I kept walking with all of them hanging off me. The fourth night, I climbed through mountain forests with invisible hunters, stone giants, and ghosts that passed through my body, leaving bone-deep cold behind. Hundreds of monsters followed me up the mountain. None of them could stop me. Every dawn I found a tree, climbed up, and slept a few hours. Everyday search parties from the Sioux family came through the area. I hid behind rocks and inside bushes. Once a man stopped right in front of my hiding spot, stood there for a moment, then walked away. By the 5th morning, I had walked nearly 200 miles. My clothes were destroyed. My body was covered in wounds and bite marks. Every bone felt wrong. I checked my panel. Health 155 billion out of 200 billion. Points over 2,000. I walked into the poison mist at the valley entrance. It drained 10 health per second, but I walked through the whole night until I saw the stone marker ahead. 3 blood-red characters carved into rock. Evil Valley. A thin old man at the gate collected my 1,000 points without a word and waved me through. Inside was a whole hidden town. Stone buildings, market stalls, people with cold eyes watching everyone who walked past. Nobody attacked me. The rules kept them in line. I found an inn and paid 1,000 points for a single room. Locked the door. Lay down on the bed. Safe. At least for now. I plugged in my phone and checked the class group chat while it charged. Everyone assumed I was already dead. Nobody survives outside the city at night. Not at level 2. I closed the chat and checked my panel one last time. Level 2. Health 155 billion. Points 1,678. I closed my eyes. 3 seconds later I was asleep. Back in the city, Su Chun lay in bed looking pale and weak while my mother held his hand and cried. He kept telling her not to blame me, that I was just emotional, that he forgave me. When she left the room, his face changed completely. He stared at the ceiling with cold, flat eyes and touched the bandages on his stomach. He said my name quietly to himself. He said he had not expected me to survive, that the punch should have killed me, that the whole city was hunting me and I had nowhere to go. Then he smiled and closed his eyes. I checked out of the expensive inn the next morning. 1,000 points a night was too much. I needed somewhere cheaper. I walked down the main street watching people sell equipment from the ground. Everything here cost less than the official shop, but I still could not afford any of it. At the far end of the street, I found a worn stone building with a crooked sign. 300 points a night. I paid 600 for 2 nights and got a tiny room with a leaking roof and a broken chair. Better than the Su family basement. I went back to ask the old landlord some questions. He charged 100 points per question. I paid for 3. The tower was to the east. Exit fee was 500 points per visit. Everything inside the valley cost points. Food, information, everything. The fastest ways to earn points were 3. Hunt monsters outside the valley. Too dangerous at my level. Accept jobs at the task hall. Kill people, guard people, steal things. All kinds of work with all kinds of pay. Or the third option, underground fighting. The old man described it plainly. A fighting cage in a basement. Win and earn 5,000 points. Lose and possibly die. He told me a level 2 going in there was suicide. I asked where it was. He pointed west and went back to sleep. The 2 men at the door were level 28 and 31. They saw my level 2 mark and laughed. I told them I was there to fight. They stopped laughing and let me in. Below the stairs was a massive underground room packed with thousands of people surrounding an iron cage. 2 fighters were already inside, hitting each other until one dropped. The crowd screamed and threw money. A man walked me to a back room where 5 other fighters were waiting. Levels 3 to 7. They looked at my mark and laughed too. One girl named He was the only one who spoke to me seriously. She told me to protect my head and survive 3 minutes. The judges would stop the fight and I would lose, but at least I would walk out alive. I watched the others go out one by one. The level 7 fighter came back unconscious. The level 5 came back with a broken leg. The third one never came back at all. He came back bleeding with one arm hanging useless, but alive. Then it was my turn. I walked into the cage. The crowd bet on how long I would last. 1 minute. Maybe 3 if they were generous. My opponent was also level 2. Thin, cold eyes, already smiling at me before the fight started. When the signal came, he moved fast. His first punch grazed my ear. His second hit my shoulder. 200 damage. He stared at his fist. Then at me. I had not moved. He hit me again. 200 damage. I stepped back 2 steps and stood straight. He started hitting me over and over. 10 punches in a row, all landing clean. 3,000 damage total. Then he stepped back, breathing hard, and looked at me with fear in his eyes. "What are you?" he said. I looked at him. "Done?" I asked. He turned to run. I grabbed the back of his neck and pushed him face first into the ground. I put my foot on his back. The whole room went silent. The organizer declared me the winner. The crowd exploded with noise. He walked over and asked what my ability was. I told him, D level, life enhancement. He stared at me for a moment, then handed over a card with 5,000 points loaded on it. I walked out into the evening air. 5,000 points plus what I had left. Enough for 2 weeks of lodging and 10 tower entries. But surviving was not enough. I wanted more than that. I looked at the black tower rising in the distance. Tomorrow I go in. I woke up hungry the next morning. Through the cracked window, the valley was already wrapped in its usual gray fog. I checked my phone. The top news story was Su Chun clearing floor 2 of the tower in 1 minute. Brought there by the whole family, wearing a full set of rare equipment worth hundreds of thousands of points. Everyone in the comments called him brave for fighting injured. Half of them wondered if I was dead yet. I closed the phone and went downstairs. I paid to extend my room for another night, then walked east toward the Black Tower. Today was Sunday, Tower Day. Before entering, I opened the shop and bought a level 2 bronze sword and bronze armor. 500 points each. My attack went to 40. My health jumped to 400 billion because the armor's 200 health bonus got multiplied by 100 million too. I walked through the gate. Inside was a stone room with 6 monsters waiting. 5 charging boars and 1 healing slime hiding behind them. All 5 boars hit me at once when the fight started. 150 damage total. My health bar barely flickered. I ran straight past them toward the slime in the back. The boars kept ramming me from behind while I chopped at the slime. 5 hits, and it was dead. Without the healer, the boars were just slow targets. I worked through them one by one. 5 minutes and 47 seconds. Floor 2 cleared. Level 3. Health 500 billion. Attack 50. I paid the 500-point exit fee and walked straight to the fighting house. The 2 guards recognized me and let me in without a word. The thin organizer found me immediately and smiled when I asked about doing multiple fights. He explained the streak bonus system. 2 wins in a row paid 6,000. 3 wins, 8,000. 4 wins, 10,000. 5 wins, 15,000. I told him to set it up. Back in the waiting room, the other fighters recognized me from the night before. They whispered to each other about the strange level 2 who took 10 punches without falling. My fight was second. My opponent was level 4 with sharp eyes and a confident grin when he saw my ordinary equipment. He hit me first. 700 damage. I stepped back 1 step and stood still. He stared at me, then hit me again. And again. Over and over until he ran out of energy and backed away breathing hard. Then I walked toward him. 1 step. He stepped back. Another step. He backed into the cage wall with nowhere to go. I grabbed his throat and lifted him off the ground. The room went completely silent. The organizer called the fight. I let the man drop and walked out. 6,000 points. 2 wins in a row. The organizer asked if I was coming back tomorrow. I said yes. What I did not know was that someone had already posted a video of my fights online. I did not know someone had filmed my fight until I checked my phone that night. The video was everywhere. A level 3 in worn-out equipment taking punch after punch from a level 4 without falling. Then lifting the level 4 off the ground by his throat like he weighed nothing. The comments section was going wild, trying to figure out what kind of ability could make that possible. Then someone posted the wanted notice next to a screenshot of my face from the video. The whole internet figured it out at once. It was me, the boy who stabbed Su Chun and ran. Somehow alive. Somehow inside Evil Valley. Half the comments were shocked I had survived the journey at all. The roads to Evil Valley were dangerous enough to kill level 40 fighters. I had been level 2 when I left the city. The other half were starting to ask questions about Su Chun. A few people pointed out that Su Chun had cleared floor 2 in 1 minute wearing tens of thousands of points worth of rare equipment bought by his family. I had cleared everything I had cleared in torn clothes with the cheapest gear available. Some comments said the word fake no longer applied to me. The class group chat had exploded too. Wang Fatty said I was his idol now. Zhang Wei said he had switched sides. Even the ones who had called me a waste a few days ago were praising the comeback story. I read through it all lying on my bed in the small leaking room. Idol. I almost laughed out loud. These same people were calling me a waste last week. I closed the chat. Back at the Su family house, my father stared at the video with his brow tight. My mother could not understand how a level 2 had survived that journey alone. My sisters went quiet. Su Chun lay in his bed holding his phone, watching the clip of me lifting that man off the ground, and his hand slowly clenched into a fist. He had just broken a tower record and been praised by everyone. Now the top 3 trending topics were all about me. He stared at the screen and whispered to himself, "Why won't you just die?" I put my phone down and opened the tower guide for floor 3. Time to plan the next fight. I pulled up the floor 3 guide and read through it carefully. 7 monsters. 5 armored boars, and 2 healing slimes. The problem was the slimes. If both of them focused on the same boar, at once the monster recovered 100 health every second. My current attack was 50. I would deal less damage than they healed. The boar would never die. The second problem was the boars themselves. All 5 shared the same threat. Hit any one of them, and all 5 came at you immediately. There was no way to sneak past them to reach the slimes first. The only solution was to raise my attack above 100. I opened my panel. Level 3. Attack 50. Points 10,778. I browsed the level 3 equipment page. A rare silver sword added 100 attack and cost 10,000 points. That would push me past the 100 threshold and let me actually kill the boars faster than the slimes could heal them. But I wanted more than just the sword. Here was the thing about my ability that made me want to sit down and just breathe for a moment. When I buy equipment that adds health, the number gets multiplied by 100 million too. A rare level 3 armor that adds 1,000 health to a normal person adds 1,000 billion to me. A rare ring that adds 600 health adds 600 billion to me. Other people spend 10,000 points for 1,000 extra health. I spend 10,000 points for 1,000 billion extra health. Same cost. 100 million times the result. I needed 3 rare pieces total. Sword, armor, and ring. 30,000 points altogether. I had about a third of that. Chun was the fastest way to earn. I had won 2 fights in a row already. Third one paid 8,000. Fourth paid 10,000. Fifth paid 15,000. I did the math. 5 fights total over 5 days came out to 44,000 points. More than enough for a full rare set with points left over. I put down my phone and closed my eyes. Tomorrow was fight 3. 8,000 points if I won. I smiled to myself in the dark. With my health bar, losing was going to be very difficult. I walked into the fighting house that evening like it was already routine. The 2 guards at the door recognized me and let me through without a word. The underground room was more packed than the night before. People pointed and whispered when I came down the stairs. Word had spread about the level 2 who had beaten a level 4. In the waiting room, a girl named He pulled me aside before my fight and warned me quietly. My opponent tonight was level 5, an experienced fighter who had been here many times. Attack ability, at least A grade. Full set of quality equipment. I thanked her and went out when they called my name. My opponent was a stocky man in his mid-20s. Bald, heavy muscles, wearing a black combat suit and metal gauntlets. Level 5. His total attack with equipment and ability was over 2,700. His health was around 2,750. He looked at my worn clothes and laughed. He told me he would go easy on me if I knelt down and begged right now. The signal came, and he moved fast. His first punch hit my face. 2,750 damage. I stepped back 1 step. He stared at me. Hit me again. I stepped back again and stood straight. Then he stopped holding back. He threw punch after punch, over 20 in a row, all landing clean. Each one hit harder than anything I had faced in the fight so far. I stood there and let him finish. When he finally stepped back gasping, I looked at him and said the same thing I always said. Done? He turned to run. I grabbed the back of his neck and started hitting back. He surrendered shortly after. 3 wins in a row. 8,000 points. The organizer handed me the card with wide eyes and asked who I was. I told him I was someone with a wanted notice on my head. Then I walked out. Someone in the crowd had filmed the whole thing. By 10 that night, the video was everywhere online. Comments exploded trying to figure out how a level 3 with cheap equipment had taken over 20 punches from a level 5 without falling. Nobody could work out the math. My announced ability was D-grade health doubling. At level 3, that should give me around 600 health. The level 5 had done nearly 50,000 damage total. The numbers made no sense to anyone watching. My classmates declared me their idol in the group chat. Someone said they were setting my photo as their phone wallpaper for good luck before attempting floor 1. Back at the Su family house, my father watched the video in silence with white knuckles. Su-chan cried softly and told my parents it was all his fault for going to find me that day. My mother held him. My sisters said it had nothing to do with him. My father said nothing for a long time. Then he gave a quiet order to his people. Double the reward. For 1,000,000 points to bring me out alive. 2,000,000 for dead. Su-chan lowered his head so nobody could see him smile. I walked back to my small room through streets filling up with people heading toward the fight house. I kept my head down and moved quickly. I had 3 more fights to plan for. I woke up to knocking on my door before sunrise. The landlord handed me a cloth bag someone had left outside with my name written on it. Inside were 3 envelopes. I had no idea what had happened online while I slept. The first letter was from Beijing University. The dean wrote by hand. He said he had watched my fights. He offered a protection spot, a full scholarship worth 100,000 points a year, and one-on-one guidance from a personal teacher. He said they would handle the Su family pressure. All I had to do was show up. The second was from Shanghai Academy, a formal printed letter. At the bottom, someone had added a handwritten message from one of the 5 strongest people in the country, a level 89 space ability fighter who worked alone and never took students. He said my ability was interesting and he wanted to evaluate it personally. The third was from Dragon City War Academy. One line: come or don't. If you come, elite class, all equipment and points covered. Below it, someone had drawn a fist. I sat with the 3 letters for a while. These were the exact schools that had rushed to offer everything to Su Chun on Awakening Day. Now they were sending letters through back channels to a wanted criminal hiding in a valley for outlaws. I put the letters under my pillow and went downstairs. What I did not know was that the internet had been burning all night. A journalist had posted a careful breakdown of the timeline from the day I stabbed Su Chun. She asked why an SSS-level newly awakened teenager would bring a level 21 guard to a low-risk area outside the city. She asked why a level 2 would attack someone protected by a level 21 guard unless he had no other choice. She did not draw conclusions. She just laid out the facts. The comments figured it out themselves. Then someone pointed out that my father's wanted notice had never been submitted to the Awakener Association for review. The public covenant required that before any pursuit order became legal. He had skipped that step entirely because nobody expected anyone to defend a D-level waste. The 3 universities posted public statements within minutes of each other in the middle of the night. All 3 offered me protection spots. All 3 cited the covenant. The dean from Shanghai Academy mentioned that the level 89 independent fighter found my ability fascinating. The internet said the wanted notice had become a joke. At the Su family house, my father sat in front of 3 phones reading the university statements without expression. Su Chin cried into my mother's shoulder and said it was all his fault. His eyes behind her back were completely cold. My father finally spoke quietly. He said to pause the wanted notice until the association finished their review. He said if the 3 universities got involved together, he could not suppress it. Then he went upstairs. Su Chin kept crying. I pulled on my jacket and headed out into the gray morning. 4th fight today. The underground room was more packed than ever. 5,000 people at minimum, spilling up the stairs. Everyone had seen the previous videos, and word had spread through the whole valley. My opponent tonight was a man called Iron Wolf. Level 6. 20-plus fights in the cage with only 3 losses, all against level 7 fighters. He pulled me aside before I went out and told me his attack ability was S grade. 1 punch could deal 10,000 damage. I thanked her and walked out. Iron Wolf was broad and heavy with a shaved head and blood-stained combat gear. Metal gauntlets with 3 gemstones set into the knuckles. He held up 2 fingers and told me he had finished his last opponent in 2 punches. He asked how many I thought I could take. I told him he would find out when he was done. He laughed and said he liked that. The fight started. His first punch hit me for 11,000 damage. I stepped back 1 step and stood straight. He stared at me. Hit me again. I stabbed back. 50 damage. He laughed and told the crowd I was tickling him. His 6,000 health would take me over 100 hits to drain, while he could end me in a few punches. We traded blows for 70 rounds. He hit hard every time. I hit back every time for 50 each. Finally, he ran out of energy and bent over gasping. I kept going. 1 sword strike. Then another. Then another. The crowd started laughing again. 50 damage per hit on a man with 30,000 health. They did the math out loud. It would take 600 hits. They called it a draw. They said nobody could be that patient. I kept going. 100 strikes. 200. 300. Iron Wolf stopped laughing around the 200 mark. By 300, he was watching his health drop with a strange expression. He tried punching me again to break my rhythm. I stepped back, stood up, and kept cutting. 400 strikes. His health was getting low. 500 strikes. Iron Wolf backed up against the cage wall with nowhere left to go. He looked at my sword still dripping his own blood. He looked at me. Then he dropped to his knees and raised both hands. I surrender. Stop cutting. I surrender. The room went completely silent for a moment. Then it exploded. Iron Wolf had never surrendered to anyone. Not once in 20-plus fights. He was kneeling in front of a level 3 with cheap equipment who had just methodically cut him down over 500 strikes. 10,000 points. 4 wins in a row. I walked out with my sword hand trembling slightly from the repetition. 500 cuts will do that to your arm. The same small man with the phone was filming from the corner again. By 11 that night, the video was trending at number 1. I got back to my room late and checked my phone. The wanted notice had been canceled. The Awakener Association had posted an official announcement. My father's pursuit order had been issued without following the required process. No evidence submitted. No review completed. The association called it procedurally illegal and canceled it immediately across the whole country. They also noted that existing evidence suggested I had been attacked first by a level 21 fighter and that my response may have been self-defense. An investigation team had been formed. Results within 7 working days. Nobody was allowed to pursue or attack me in the meantime. I read it twice and put my phone down. Free. The comments online were wild. People finally saying out loud what the numbers had always suggested. A level 2 does not attack someone with a level 21 guard standing right there unless he has no other choice. The guard, Wong Fu, had apparently vanished. Phone off. Not at his home. The investigation team found him anyway, packing a bag in a rundown apartment on the edge of the city at 2 in the morning. They walked him out the door before he could leave. Back at the Su family house, my father sat in silence for a long time after reading the announcement. He told everyone to stop making public statements until the investigation finished. Su Chun cried again on my mother's shoulder. His face was hidden, so nobody saw his eyes were open and completely cold. In the class group chat, everyone was celebrating. Some were saying I had clearly been framed from the start. Zhao Shui said she had cried. Wang Fatty asked if I was coming back to the city. I read through it all quietly. Then I pulled out the 3 letters from under my pillow and read them again. Beijing University. Shanghai Academy. Dragon City War Academy. 3 different promises. 3 doors open and waiting. I put them back and lay down. Not yet. I was level 3. 4 wins in the cage. 500 billion health. Still wearing the same worn-out clothes I had left home in. Not strong enough yet. Someday I would walk back into that city on my own terms. Stand in front of all of them. Not to argue. Not to explain. Just to let them see with their own eyes what they had thrown away. Tomorrow was Fight 5. I closed my eyes. The underground room held 8,000 people that night. Standing on the stairs, crammed into every corner. All of them there to see a level 3 fight a level 7. He found me before my fight and told me my opponent was called Butcher. Level 7. 30-plus fights with only 5 losses. S-grade strength ability. 1 punch over 25,000 damage. She held my hand and told me to come back alive. I walked into the cage. Butcher was 2 meters tall with a blood-red tattoo on his bald head and rare equipment covering every part of his body. He looked down at my worn clothes and smiled. We fought for 300 rounds. He hit hard every time. I hit back every time for 50 damage. Neither of us held anything back and neither of us defended. Just pure attack back and forth until his health finally ran low enough that 1 more clean hit would end him. He dropped to his knees and raised both hands. 5 wins in a row. 15,000 points. The forum crashed that night from too many people online at once. Every trending topic was about me. Someone called me the strongest health ability awakener in 100 years. The investigation team announced the guard Wang Fu had already confessed that Su Chun told him to teach me a lesson that day in the fields outside the city. The results would be published the next day. Su Chun was put under house arrest by my father. No leaving without permission. I lay on my bed with my sword hand still trembling and felt lighter than I had in years. The next morning I read through the 3 letters one more time and called each school. Beijing University offered 10,000 points a year, full protection, personal guidance. Shanghai Academy offered 12,000 points a year, and the level 89 independent fighter who never took students said my ability was interesting enough to guide personally. Dragon City War Academy offered 80 level instructors, full equipment and points, and said one of the 5 strongest people in the country had watched my videos and said I had something worth developing. I was thinking it through when an unknown number called. The Valley Master. He said I had brought good business to his valley, and he owed me a small favor. He told me to choose the school that fit me best, not the strongest one. I thought about it honestly. My ability was just high health. No attack power. No control skills. No recovery. Just thick blood and stubbornness. Dragon City War Academy was the most practical, the hardest training, the highest dropout rate, but also the most real-world experience. An 80-level teacher who could show me how to use what I had. I called them back. Old Zhang answered and shouted so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. He said to stay put, and someone would come get me that afternoon. I told him it was 2,000 miles away. He told me to stop arguing. 1 hour later, the whole valley looked up at the same time. A large black aircraft was descending over Evil Valley with a blood-red fist painted on the side. Dragon City War Academy's crest. The crowd recognized it immediately. Some said it was the vehicle used by the strongest of the 5 great fighters himself. An elderly man stepped out. Level 80. White hair. Standing straight as a soldier. He scanned the crowd with one quiet look that made the air feel heavy. He asked where I was. I walked out from the crowd. He looked me up and down and smiled. "Follow me," he said. I followed him onto the aircraft. The door closed behind me. We lifted into the sky and turned north. Through the window, I watched Evil Valley shrink below me. A few days ago, I had crawled into that place running for my life with nothing but worn clothes and a rusty sword. Now I was leaving in an aircraft sent by one of the most powerful people in the country. I leaned back in my seat and watched the clouds roll past. Somewhere ahead, a new world was waiting. The aircraft flew north for 2 hours. My first time in one. My first time this far from home. The instructor who had come to collect me was named Lei Zhan. Level 80. Total educator for the elite class. He asked what my ability was within the first few minutes. I said D-level health enhancement. He laughed and said I was obviously hiding something, but told me it did not matter. Whatever I had, as long as I was not hurting people, Dragon City War Academy would protect me. Anyone who came after me would answer to him first. I felt something in my chest loosen a little when he said that. He also warned me the training was brutal and told me not to cry and begged to go home when it got hard. When Dragon City came into view through the window, it looked nothing like any city I had seen. No tall buildings, no busy streets, just training grounds, combat simulation rooms, equipment warehouses, and a black tower in the center that made the whole place feel serious and cold. We landed in a large square and walked inside. My classroom had over 30 students. All level 3. All new. All with abilities listed on their badges that made mine look embarrassing on paper. Several SSS grades. Multiple SS grades. They all stared when I walked in. The instructor told us floor 3 of the tower opened tomorrow. We needed to form teams ourselves and figure out our own strategy. Everyone had to clear it. Anyone who held the team back could leave the elite class. Then he walked out. A silver-haired boy named Han Bing stood up almost immediately. SSS grade. Ice ability. He walked over and said he wanted to test something, then hit me full force in the chest without much warning. 5,000 damage. I stepped back 1 step. He hit me again. Same result. Then he used his name technique. Frost burst. 15,000 damage. I stepped back 3 steps, brushed the ice off my clothes, and asked if he was done. He stood there with his mouth open. A red-haired girl said my attack was too low to be useful in a team. 50 damage per hit was nothing. A black-haired boy in the corner told her she was wrong. He pointed out that floor 3 had 2 healing slimes that could stack their healing on the same monster. Without a proper tank, the whole team spent energy on survival instead of attacking. With me in front absorbing damage, the output players could go all out. He said having me on the team increased clear rate by at least 30%. The red-haired girl had nothing to say to that. Then everyone started arguing over who got to team up with me. I sat in my chair and watched them fight over it. A few days ago, I was the D-level waste the whole city laughed at. Now a room full of SSS and SS Great Awakeners were competing to stand behind me. The world moves fast. The classroom sorted itself out quickly. 3 people ended up on my team. Yin Yin, SSS Grade Fire Ability. Red hair, sharp eyes, and an attack power over 10,000. She was the one who had called my output useless earlier, but she came around when the logic was explained clearly. Han Bing, SSS Grade Ice Ability. Silver hair. The one who had hit me 3 times to test my health. He accepted the result with good grace and switched sides. Ing Run, SSS Grade Shadow Assassination. Black hair, always looked half asleep, but the sharpest mind in the room. He was the one who explained to Yin Yin exactly why having me on the team was valuable. Single target burst damage up to 20,000, but no staying power without someone to absorb hits. The four of us ate dinner together and talked through the plan for floor 3 tomorrow. Their attack numbers were all over 10,000. Mine was 50. They had around 2,000 health each. I had 500 billion. Yin asked what my ability really was. I said health enhancement. She asked how much. I said I would let her figure it out herself. Sunday morning the tower gate opened. Floor 3 day. The four of us stepped through together. Inside was a large stone chamber, twice the size of floor 2. 20 armored boars and 8 healing slimes waiting in formation. 4-person teams faced 4 times the monsters. I ran straight at the boars. All 20 turned on me immediately. 45 damage per charge, 30 per bite. Shanghai numbers flooding my screen constantly. I stood my ground and watched the back line. Yin, Han Bing, and Ing Run moved on the slimes. 3 seconds, and all 8 were gone. Fire pillar, ice spikes, shadow blades. Each one 12,000 damage or higher. With no healing left, the boars were just targets. 30 seconds, and all 20 were down. 1 minute and 23 seconds. New record for floor 3, level 4. Health 600 billion. Attack 60. Han Bing asked how I had taken that much punishment without breaking. Yin asked directly what my health number was. I thought for a moment. I needed something believable that explained my ability without revealing the truth. I told them 6 million. That was 100 times what an SSS grade health ability would give. Shocking enough to explain everything. Still nowhere near my actual number. All 3 went completely silent. Yin finally said she had 2,000 health. Ingren asked if I was even human. I told them to just call me Su Lin. That night the Academy forum posted about our run. Comments asked how a level 4 could have 6 million health. People said they could not imagine what that number would look like at level 80. I lay in bed reading the comments with no expression. 6 million shocked them this much. If they knew the real number was 600 billion, they would not be able to close their mouths. Level 4. I was just getting started. Someone had recorded me saying 600 million health and posted it online overnight. By morning the whole country was doing the math. Level 4 base health was 400. 600 million was a 15,000 times multiplier. The strongest health ability ever recorded in 100 years was 200 times. Someone had been called the Undying King for that. My number was 75 times beyond that. The Awakener Association called an emergency meeting. Yin woke me up at 9 in the morning by pounding on my door and shoving her phone in my face. The association had posted an official announcement. They were creating a new ability grade. Above SSS. They were calling it God grade. The evaluation standard was any ability with over 1,000 times multiplier. The announcement also noted that the first person nominated for this grade was me. I said okay and asked if we could go get breakfast. Yin stared at me. Han Bing called me inhuman. Ingren said anyone who could show no reaction to 600 million health would probably shrug off this news too. They took me to the head office. The academy principal was there, and sitting next to him was the Awakener Association president. Level 85. White hair. He had come specifically to meet me. He told me directly. My ability had never appeared in recorded history. The association was formally designating me as the first God-grade Awakener ever recognized. He asked how my ability came to be, whether something had happened to me when I was young. A lightning strike. A strange place. Anything unusual. I said no. I told him I had always been this way. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded and stood up. He extended his hand and said congratulations. He said from now on I was the hope of the whole country. I shook his hand and said thank you. The hope of the whole country. I thought about the damp basement walls in the Su family house. The nights I spent being blamed for things I never did. Su-chin looking down at me with that calm, satisfied expression. Then I smiled. A cold, small smile. Hope of the whole country. That worked for me. At least now nobody would dare treat me the way they used to. Back in the Su family house, my mother sat holding her phone with shaking hands reading the announcement. My sisters had nothing to say. My father sat without expression, but his knuckles were white on the armrest. Su-chen came downstairs looking pale and tearful. He said he had seen the news. He said he was sorry again. He said he had only wanted to scare me, not hurt me. My father told him to stop. Then he told Su-chen he did not want to see him. He went upstairs. Su-chen stood in the silent room with his head down. Nobody saw his eyes behind his lowered lashes. Cold as ice. After the meeting with the association president, Yin Yin dragged us to the equipment warehouse. The principal had approved a free full set of level 4 rare equipment for me. The gear manager was waiting. 3 pieces on the wall. A black sword that added 120 attack. Silver armor that added 1200 health. A ring that added 60 attack and 600 health. I put them all on and opened my panel quietly. Base health from level 4 was 400 billion times my multiplier. The armor added 1200. The ring added 600. 1,800 health from equipment, each multiplied by 100 million. Total health, 2,200 billion. I told the others it was 20 million. All 3 of them stopped moving. Yin Yin said I had just told them 6 million an hour ago. I said the equipment added the rest. They stood there looking at me like I was something that had fallen from the sky. Yin Yin checked her own health. 2,800. Han Bing had 2,200. Ing Run had 2,600. The 3 of them combined were not a fraction of my total. Yin Yin said from now on her job was to attack and my job was to exist. We signed the paperwork and walked out into the sunshine. I looked at the tower in the distance while the others talked about food. My father was level 89. His base attack at that level was 9 billion. SSS grade ability with 100 times multiplier brought that to 900 billion per hit. Before equipment, passive skills, or techniques. My 2,200 billion health sounded impressive until I did that math. Still not enough. That afternoon, the instructor stood at the front of the classroom and told us everyone had cleared floor 3. No eliminations. Then he showed us floor 4. Level 4 monsters. 8 regular grade and 2 quality grade. Quality grade monsters had 3 times the stats of regular ones. One of the quality grade monsters could go berserk and hit an area around itself repeatedly. Everyone inside that range took damage. I could survive that easily. My teammates could not. The instructor kept everyone back after class and pulled me aside separately. He told me clearly, high health was not enough. This week I needed to learn 2 things. How to hold monster attention so they never turned toward my teammates. And how to use my body to block area damage before it reached the others. 6 days to train before the next Tower Sunday. The training field behind the building was enormous. Students everywhere. Fire, ice, lightning, and wind abilities lighting up the air in every direction. Teams running positioning drills. Someone in the corner sketching out strategy notes. The 4 of us found a quiet spot and started working. I was in the middle of positioning practice when Yin Yin shoved her phone in my face. The Su family had held a public press conference. My father stood at a podium and said the words out loud in front of cameras and reporters. He said he was sorry. He said he had not looked into the truth before issuing the wanted notice. He said if I was watching, he wanted me to come home. My mother cried so hard she could barely speak. She said she had never held me once. She said she remembered when I was small and learning to walk. I reached up for a hug, and she told the nanny to take me away. She said she was sorry. My 3 sisters each took the microphone one by one. Su Yao said she had treated me badly and promised it would be different. Su Ling said she knew I would not forgive her, but she hoped for a chance. Little Xiao said she missed me and asked me to come back. The video was trending at number 1 within the hour. Comments were split down the middle. Half said blood is thicker than water, and I should give them a chance. The other half said 18 years of neglect and cruelty does not disappear because someone cries on camera. Everyone was waiting for my response. I watched the video for a few seconds. Then I handed the phone back to Yin Yin and went back to my positioning drill. Yin Yin stared at me. She said my mother had nearly fainted from crying. I kept practicing. Back at the Su house, my father had already made several moves before the press conference. He tried calling me. Phone unavailable. My mother tried messaging me on every platform. All of them got the same red error. Not on contact list. All blocked. He called the academy principal and asked to speak with me directly. The principal laughed and told him I was not picking up even for him. He told my father plainly that I was under the protection of Dragon City War Academy and the personal mentorship of the strongest fighter in the country. If my father made any move against me, he would be making enemies of all of them. My father said he did not want to move against me. He said he wanted to make things right. The principal said it was probably too late for that. He said my heart had gone cold, and I was not the kind of person who could be won back with sweet words. Before the press conference, my father had also called Su Chen downstairs and told him to kneel. He confirmed that Wang Fu had confessed everything. Su Chen had ordered him to teach me a lesson. A level 21 fighter sent to hurt a level 2. My father told Su Chen he was not his father anymore. He sent him to the basement. Su Chun knelt on the floor with his shoulders shaking. Nobody could see his eyes. Cold as ice. Same as always. Yan showed me the press conference video during practice. My whole family on camera, crying and asking me to come back. I watched for a few seconds and handed the phone back. Yan asked if I was going home. I told her that place was never a home. It was a prison. I was never going back. She started to argue. I told her what kind of man my father really was. One of the 5 strongest people in the country does not reach that position through kindness. He was not apologizing because he felt guilty. He was apologizing because I had become valuable and he was afraid of what I might do later. That night someone messaged me from an unknown account. Just one line. Be careful. Suchin will not let this go. Then a second message. My father was already having people watch the academy and track any outside missions. I stared at the screen for a long time. He had started moving against me even while publicly apologizing. I told my teammates the next morning. Their faces changed. Han Bing said surely he would not go that far. Ingren reminded him that every person who reached the level of the 5 great fighters had blood on their hands. That was how you got there and stayed there. I said I needed to get stronger as fast as possible. Strong enough that even if he came personally, he could not finish me. All 4 of them said they would train with me. That was the first time in 18 years anyone had chosen to stand beside me. The 6 days before Sunday became the hardest training of my life. Up before dawn, back after dark every night. Positioning, pulling monster attention, blocking area attacks with my body. Floor 4 went smoothly. Floor 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Each week a new record. By the time I reached level 10 my health was over 10 trillion. I bought rare level 10 equipment and it pushed even higher. Then the National Academy tournament arrived. The arena in the capital held 50,000 people and it was full. Dragon City War Academy versus Sky City Academy in the very first round. Last year's champions against this year's newcomers. Before we left, the strongest fighter in the country came to see us off personally. He told me high health was not everything. Some abilities could drain health by percentage or bypass defense entirely. Never get complacent. I told them I understood. Their team leader was a silver-haired boy named Bai Yi. SSS, grade light ability. Fast. He had found me in the cafeteria the night before and told me to prepare carefully. He said our first opponent was his team. He wanted to see what God grade actually meant. The match started. Bai Yi moved the instant the signal came, heading straight for Lin Yu at the back. I had already stepped backward 1 step before he arrived, blocking the path completely. His sword hit my chest. 200,000 damage. I did not move. I grabbed his sword, pulled him off balance, and slapped him across the face. He spun around once and stood there staring at me. 30 seconds later, all 5 of their team were on the ground. The arena was silent for a moment. Then 50,000 people erupted at once. A reporter asked what I thought about the match. I said the opponents were too weak. The crowd went wild again. Bai Yi was carried out on a stretcher staring at my back. He had said he wanted to see what God grade meant. Now he had seen it. Suchin was not in their lineup today. I noticed that. If he had been there, he would have been one of the 5 lying on the ground. The evening banquet was held in the top floor of the city's grandest hotel. Everyone in that room was someone important. Family heads, association leaders, powerful awakeners I had only ever seen in news reports. I stood in a corner with a glass of orange juice, and people came to me one after another. A man from the Lin family introduced himself and immediately introduced his daughter, who went red in the face and called me Big Brother. A round man from the Zhou family pushed his son forward, a cheerful boy who told me how satisfying it had been to watch me slap Bai Yi across the face. An old man named Wang Tiangang, level 84, head of the Wang family in the capital, walked straight up to me, said I was the kind of person worth knowing, and walked away before I could even respond. Military representatives came with a message from my mentor. Even a quiet boy from the Yi family across the room watched me for a while from a distance without ever coming over. Cards and invitations kept appearing in my hands. I stopped counting. This was what strength looked like from the outside. Everyone wanting a piece of it. My teammates eventually pushed through the crowd to find me. Yan had sauce on her face from eating too much. Han Bing was holding a pile of business cards people had asked him to pass on. Ingren said someone had tried to give him a VIP card worth several thousand points. Lin Yu stood quietly nearby with her juice, and for a moment when everyone laughed about something she smiled. Just slightly. It was the first time I had seen her smile. The association president found me eventually and told me tomorrow's opponent was stronger than today's. A space ability user who would be difficult to pin down. Then he turned to the crowd still hovering nearby and cheerfully told them I was tired and needed to rest. Nobody argued with him. We slipped out through a side door into the quiet corridor. In a different corner of the same hall, my father stood alone with a drink he had not touched. My mother beside him, pale and silent. My sisters avoided old friends who pretended not to see them. My youngest sister hid in a corner and watched me from across the room. I could see them from where I stood. My father watched me talk with Wang Tiangang, a man from his own generation who was laughing and clapping my shoulder like a proud grandfather. Then my father looked away and walked toward the exit. I watched them leave through the closed door. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not sadness. Just quiet. Back in my room, I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, another match. The day after, another. Then another. I was going to keep going until I held the trophy. Not as the Su family's throwaway. Not as Su Chen's older brother. Just as Su Lin. God Great Awakener. Su Lin. 3 matches in 3 days. All 3 ended in 30 seconds. The second match was against the top team from the capital's academy. Their key player had a space ability and could teleport anywhere on the field instantly. The moment the match started, he vanished and appeared behind Lin Yu with a blade aimed at her back. I had already stepped backward before he finished moving. His knife hit me instead. 250,000 damage. I grabbed his wrist before he could teleport away again, lifted him off the ground, and threw him into the floor. 30 seconds later, all 5 of them were down. The third match was against a team with a control ability user. She hit me with vines, ice, stun, and paralysis all at once. I walked through all of it and patted her on the head. Done? I asked. Her whole team was on the ground 30 seconds after that. 3 matches. 3 30-second victories. When reporters asked about our goal, I said one word. Champion. They stared at me like I had said something shocking. But I was not trying to be dramatic. It was just the truth. The other 2 age groups from our academy had both been eliminated in the first round. The older students were sitting through long meetings with unhappy coaches. All the pressure now sat entirely on the 5 of us. The principal called me in privately and told me straight. If we lost, the whole academy looked like it was being carried by one first-year student. I told him we would not lose. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled like he actually believed it. That evening after practice, someone came to find me outside the training ground. Yi Wushang, the quiet boy from the Yi family who had watched me from across the hall at the banquet without ever speaking. Now he stood in front of me directly. He told me Su Chun was in the capital, not on the tournament roster, just here, and he had been meeting with people. He did not say what people or what for. He just said to be careful. Then he walked away into the dark before I could ask anything else. I sent him a short message thanking him. He never replied. I lay awake for a while that night thinking about it. Su Chun in the capital, talking to people, planning something. I did not know what he was doing, but I knew him well enough to know he would not just sit quietly and accept how everything had turned out. Whatever he was planning, let him come. Tomorrow was the semi-final. I would deal with one thing at a time. The semi-final was against the second-ranked team in the country. Their leader was called Lei Dong, SSS grade lightning ability. His plan was obvious from the first second. He knew he could not hurt me, so he tried to hit everyone else with area lightning instead. I stepped forward before the electricity left his hands and let it all hit me. Then he tried to send his teammates around me. A fast girl appeared behind Ren with a blade. I stepped back and blocked her. A strong man tried to push past me toward Yen Yen. I grabbed his collar and pulled him back. Another player launched ice attacks. They left no mark on me at all. Lei Dong spent 3 minutes pouring everything he had into his lightning strikes. When he finally stopped, he was bent over gasping. I walked up to him and told him he was very strong but could not hurt me. He had no answer for that. Then my teammates finished off the rest in 30 seconds. For wins. Finals tomorrow. At the evening banquet, a girl in a yellow dress walked straight through the crowd toward me. Wang Shiqing, the granddaughter of the Wang family head, level 84. She looked me up and down and told me I was shorter than her brother and not as handsome either. I said she was probably right. She laughed so hard she nearly cried. Then she told me her cousin was the captain of tomorrow's opponent. SSS grade with 2 ability types at once. She said she would come cheer for me and that losing would be boring. Then she walked away. Yin whispered that the girl's brain might be broken. Hanbing said she was the famous Wang family princess, spoiled and impossible to deal with. Ingren pointed out her grandfather was level 84, and we should not make enemies. I watched her yellow dress disappear into the crowd and could not quite figure out what she had wanted. Later I found Yi Wushang standing alone by a window. I asked him directly about Su Chun. He told me his father had received a report. Someone was planning to move against me outside of the capital after the tournament ended. That person had met with Su Chun. He did not know exactly who it was. But he told me once I left the capital, I needed to watch myself. I stood by the window looking at the city lights after he walked away. Su Chun, still not giving up. Fine. Come then. I will be ready. The finals drew a full house. Every seat taken, people standing in the aisles, cameras from every direction. My opponent was Qin Hao, the captain of the Capital Academy team. He was the cousin of the girl in the yellow dress. He told me even a god grade would lose today. Then he opened his palms to show me why. 2 lights, silver and purple blue. Double attribute SSS grade. Space and lightning combined. The crowd erupted. Even Yin Yan's face changed. Han Bing said it was the hardest combination to deal with. Ingren agreed. I told all 4 of them to stand behind me. The match started. Qin Hao vanished instantly and appeared behind me with a lightning ball aimed at Lin Yu. I had already stepped back 1 step. The lightning hit me for 500,000 damage. I stepped back 1 step and stood straight. He did it again. 500,000. 1 step back. Again. Over 10 attacks in a row, each one 500,000 damage. Each one making me step back 1 step. But I never moved far enough for him to reach anyone behind me. He finally stopped and asked how much health I had. I told him 1 billion. He stood there for a moment. Then he lowered his hands. I concede. The arena went silent for 1 second. Then 50,000 people exploded all at once. Yin and the others tackled me from behind, all talking at the same time. Lin Yu smiled. Really smiled this time, not just a flicker. I looked up at the stands. The girl in the red dress was waving both arms and laughing like she had won something herself. In the far corner of the stands, the Su family seats were empty. They had already left. I looked away. Champion. But Su Chun was still out there somewhere in this city, making plans with people I did not know yet. I looked toward the horizon. Whatever you are planning, come ahead. I am ready. The award ceremony was simple. Chen Jiuzhou handed me the trophy. Wang Tiangang put gold medals around each of our necks. The military representative gave me a sealed envelope from my mentor that said this was only the beginning. I held the trophy and felt its weight. 18 years old. First thing I had ever earned entirely on my own. At the evening banquet, I ended up standing by a window with Wang Shiqing again. She had pulled me away from the crowd to look at the city lights. She said it was the place she came when she was unhappy as a child. Then she asked if I had been unhappy growing up. I said it was in the past now. She told me about her own family. How her grandfather pushed her to train, how her father criticized her, how her brother compared her to everyone. She said they drove her crazy, but at least their feelings were real. Not like my family, she said. Then she laughed and said I had more backbone than her because I actually left and became something. I almost smiled. She caught it. She asked if we could be friends. She said she had nobody to talk to in the capital and she was bored. I said yes. She made me pinch fingers with her like children do to seal a promise. Then she said if anyone gave me trouble in the capital, I should use her name. Later she leaned close and told me quietly that her grandfather had heard people asking questions about me. Not local people. She told me to be careful. Near the end of the night, Yi Wushang was waiting in the corridor outside the hall. He told me he had found out who the people were. A branch of the Yi family from Shanghai, not the main house. Someone had paid them. That someone was Su Chun. 20 assassins waiting on the road back to the academy. All level 40 or above. The leader was level 50 with a killing type ability. Professional hired work. I stood there quietly after he finished. Then I asked him what he thought I should do. Yi Wushang told me the plan clearly. 20 assassins waiting on the road back to the academy. All level 40 to 50. The leader was called Shadow Snake, level 50, a killing specialist who had never failed a job. He asked if I was scared. I asked what a level 50 fighter could do to me in 1 hit. He said around 50 million damage. I had 1 trillion health. That would take 20,000 hits just standing still. But I also knew I was not stupid enough to fight 20 professionals alone. At levels 40 to 50, they had advantages in speed, skills, equipment, and experience that my health alone could not overcome forever. Getting worn down was a real possibility. I called Chen Jiuzhou right away. He answered in 2 rings. I told him everything. He went quiet for a moment, and then his voice got cold and serious. He told me to stay in my room and not open the door for anyone. 10 minutes later, 4 people from the association were standing outside my door. The one in front was level 70. The next morning, Chen Jiuzhou came to breakfast with me and said they had confirmed everything. He also said I had done the right thing by reporting it instead of trying to handle it myself. He said many young people with a little power start to think they are invincible. That is usually when they die without understanding why. I told him simply that I knew I could not beat a level 50. He said the association and military were handling it together. By noon, he came back to tell me 18 of the 20 had been captured. 2 had run, but were being tracked. Shadow Snake was in custody and being questioned. Suchin himself was harder to touch. Without Shadow Snake confirming the order directly, they could not act against him openly. Chen Jiuzhou said if Snake talked, things would be different. Wang Shiqing called that same morning and offered to hide me at her house under her grandfather's protection. I told her I was already covered. She sounded a little disappointed, but told me to call if I needed anything. She said that was what friends were for. The next morning, a military aircraft was waiting at the airport. General Zhao was there in person to escort us back. Yin Yin said that was quite an honor. He said a God-grade awakener was worth the effort. I looked out the window as the capital shrank below us. Good trip. Trophy 1. Real friends made for the first time in my life. But Su Qin was still out there, hiding somewhere, planning the next move. It did not matter. I had people standing with me now. He would have to get through all of them first. I leaned back and closed my eyes. 1 floor at a time. 1 level at a time. When I was strong enough to look my father in the eye without flinching, every account would be settled. The sunlight through the window was warm. Ahead, Dragon City War Academy was already coming into view. We landed back at Dragon City War Academy to a crowd waiting in the square. Cheering, people calling out our names, the principal grinning like he had won something himself. Instructor Lei Jin slapped me on the shoulder hard enough to knock me sideways and called me a good kid. That evening over dinner, everyone started talking about the passive skill trial. Level 10 unlocked 1 chance to enter a trial space and earn a permanent passive ability. The difficulty was our choice. Higher difficulty meant stronger skill, but failure meant waiting until level 20 for another chance. Yin Yin wanted attack enhancement. Han Bing was leaning toward a critical hit boost. Ingren was thinking about speed. Everyone had opinions. I stayed quiet and read through the full list alone in my room that night. Attack enhancement gave fixed numbers that my ability did not multiply. Useless for me. Health enhancement and fixed values would give me a lot now, but become meaningless at higher levels. Percentage health boost was better long-term, but still only made me thicker, not harder to kill over time. Then I found it. Recovery enhancement, percentage type. Ordinary difficulty. Recover 0.05% of maximum health per second. Hell difficulty. Recover 1% per second. My current health was 10 trillion. 1% of 10 trillion was 100 billion per second. I sat with that number for a long time. A level 50 assassin hits for 50 million per strike. At 100 billion recovery per second, 200 of those hits every second would not keep up with my healing. 100 level 50 fighters all attacking at once would still lose the race against my regeneration. The only way to kill me would be a single hit that exceeded 100 billion damage. Nothing at this level came close to that. I looked through the rest of the list carefully to make sure I was not missing something better. Nothing came close. This ability was built for someone like me. Other people at level 10 had a few thousand health. 1% of a few thousand was almost nothing. For me, it was 100 billion every single second. That was the power of 100 million times multiplier applied to a percentage. I put down my phone. Decision made. Hell difficulty. Recovery enhancement, percentage type. The passive skill trial day started early. All 30-plus students from the elite class were there, nervous and ready. Instructor Lei Jun reminded us this was a single chance. Choose the wrong difficulty and fail, you waited until level 20. Choose well, and the skill you earned would shape everything that followed. I watched my teammates go first. Yin Yin chose hell difficulty for attack enhancement percentage. Her trial threw her into a field of fire elementals immune to fire. She switched to blue flame and went on the offensive, refusing to defend at all. She came out blackened and half her hair burned off, but she had killed all 100 with just over a minute to spare. Han Bing chose held difficulty for ability cooldown reduction. A level 20 boss dragon chased him across a frozen wasteland for 15 minutes. He spent most of it bleeding and half frozen, crawling through the last stretch with barely any health left. He survived by a single second and unlocked a burst of power in the final moment that let him raise one last ice wall. Ingren chose held difficulty for critical hit enhancement. A pitch-black maze with shadow assassins hunting him. 10 of them. Nobody watching could see what happened inside. When the time ended, he was standing over the bodies. Lin Yu chose held difficulty for ability effect enhancement. She had to heal 100 plague victims while a toxic mist drained her health every second, and the act of healing each patient raised her own infection level. By the final patient, she was crawling on her knees. She finished with both values at 100% at the same moment. One breath too slow and she would have failed. She collapsed when she came out. Yin Yin caught her. I watched all 4 of them and felt something I did not expect. Something warm. Then Instructor Lei Jun called my name. The whole training ground went quiet. I stood up and walked to the gate. At the threshold, I stopped and looked back at the 4 of them. They were all watching me, expecting something, trusting me. I nodded once and stepped through. The trial space put me in a wasteland. The text on the screen told me the conditions. Survive 30 minutes in a monster wave. First wave, 1,000 elite wolves. Second wave at 10 minutes, 5,000 more. Third wave at 20 minutes, 10,000 plus 1 Lord-class Wolf King. I did the math quickly. Each elite wolf hit for around 5 to 600 damage. If all of them piled on at once, one round of bites would cost me maybe 10 million health. I had 10 trillion. They would need over 1,000 rounds just to get through half. Trial time was 30 minutes. The first wave arrived. 1,000 wolves with red eyes poured across the ground toward me. I stood still. The first one bit my leg. 520 damage. I did not move. More came. They covered my legs, my back, my arms, my shoulders. Eventually, I could not see my own feet under the pile of wolves biting me. From a distance, I probably looked like a moving black hill. I checked my health panel after 2 minutes. Down by 20 million. Out of 10 trillion. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Second wave arrived. 6,000 wolves now. My health had dropped less than 200 million total. I yawned. I had not slept well the night before. Third wave. 10,000 wolves, and the Wolf King. The king was 3 times the size of the others with silver fur and intelligent eyes. It watched from a distance for a while, waiting for me to fall. After 3 minutes it charged personally and bit my throat with everything it had. 5,000 damage. I pulled it off my neck by the scruff, looked at it for a moment, said something quiet, and set it back down. It attacked me again immediately. I let it. The timer ran out. Trial complete. I came back through the gate with my clothes torn into strips by 10,000 sets of teeth, but not a single mark on my skin. Passive skill earned. Held difficulty. Recover 1% of maximum health per second. 1% of 10 trillion was 100 billion every second. Yin Yin stared at me with her mouth open and asked how I had come out without a scratch. I told her I had just stood there and let them bite. Nobody spoke for a moment. Instructor Lei Jun looked me over, shook his head slowly, and told everyone to go rest. Tomorrow was a day off. Walking back in the sunlight, Yin said I looked like I had been living under a bridge and could put out a bowl and beg. Han Bing suggested I write a sign saying God Great Awakener seeks food. I looked down at my shredded clothes and said nothing. But something small moved at the corner of my mouth. The class group chat went wild once all 5 of us reported our results. Yin posted first. Held difficulty, attack, plus 50%. The reactions came fast. Then Han Bing. Held difficulty, ability, cooldown minus 20%. More shock. Then Ingren. Held difficulty, critical hit plus 20%. Then Lin Yu posted one quiet line. Held difficulty, ability effect plus 50%. The chat went silent for a few seconds before exploding. For held difficulties from one team. Everyone was waiting for the 5th. Yin tagged me directly. I typed back. Held difficulty. Recover 1% of maximum health per second. 3 seconds of silence. Then the chat became unreadable. Someone said their mother was asking why they were kneeling on the floor reading their phone. Someone else said they were already dead and did not need saving. That evening, Yin Yin took us all out for barbecue on the small food street near the academy. She had been there enough times that the owner had a regular table saved for her. We ate too much and talked for a long time. Yin Yin complained about the fire elementals that kept burning her hair. Han Bing described crawling across the frozen ground with a broken leg. Ing Rin said the dark maze was harder than anything because you could only rely on sound. They asked about my trial. I told them it was a wave of monsters. I said around 160, which was roughly 100 times less than the real number. Enough to explain the situation without revealing too much about my actual health. I said I had just stood there and let them bite me for 30 minutes. All four of them stopped eating and stared. Ingrid asked if I was actually human. I said probably. Yin Yin slapped the table and said she should have chosen a health ability. On the walk back, Lin Yu fell into step beside me and said quietly that she wanted to ask for my guidance going forward. I told her of course. She looked up at me for a moment, then looked back down. But I caught the smile before she hid it. Back in my room, I checked Instructor Lei Zhun's summary post. 37 students total. 5 passed at held difficulty. 12 at hard. 17 at normal. 3 failed. 3 people with no passive skill now. Waiting until level 20 for another chance, already behind. One mistake in this world, and the gap never closes. I had made none. I put down my phone and closed my eyes. Tomorrow was a rest day. Then back to getting stronger. The morning of our day off, Lin Yu treated us all to breakfast at a small shop near the East Gate. She had lived near there as a child apparently, though she did not say much more than that. The dumplings were good. We sat around talking, and Yin Yin asked her gentle questions that Lin Yu answered in short, quiet words. It was the most I had heard her say about herself. We spent the rest of the day wandering the city. Yin Yin dragged Lin Yu into clothing stores while Han Bing ended up carrying so many bags his hands went numb. Ingrid found a tea shop and sat in the sun. I walked at the back and watched the 4 of them bicker and laugh. This kind of day, I had never imagined having one. Then my phone rang. An investigator from the association. Shadow Snake had talked. The money trail, a middleman's testimony, and a recording all pointed to Su Chun. He had paid 5 million points up front with 5 million more promised after the job was done. But Su Chun denied everything. And my father had gone in person to vouch for him, saying Su Chun had been home the entire time and could not have contacted anyone. The investigators said the evidence was all indirect. Not enough to charge anyone without a direct link. They could not touch him. I stood outside the tea shop holding my phone after the call ended. Every time, he stays behind the curtain and lets other people take the blame. Every time something goes wrong, he cries and says he did not know. Every time he walks away clean. Ingrid came out and asked who called. I told him. He guessed the rest correctly before I finished. He asked what I was going to do. I said wait. He asked what I meant. I said wait until I was strong enough that no one could protect Su Chin from me. Not my father. Not anyone. Ingrid laughed. A real laugh, not his usual quiet smirk. He said he would look forward to that day. That evening, Instructor Lei Zhun pulled me into a meeting. The principal was there. Chen Jiuzhou was there. And sitting at the table was the strongest fighter in the country. He told me straight. The world is not fair. He said he had been hunted and framed when he was young and had asked the same question I was asking now. His answer was that fairness is not something given to you. It is something you take by becoming too strong for anyone to ignore. My father could protect Su Chin now because my father was stronger than me. So stop expecting justice and start getting stronger. When I was at a level where no one could stand between me and what I was owed, I could collect every debt at once. I stood up and told him I would. He looked at me for a moment, and then his expression changed from cold to something that might have been approval. Outside afterward, I stood at the door of the administration building and looked at the black tower in the dark. Still a long way to climb. A crack appeared in the eastern wall of the training ground overnight. Dark red light pulsed through it like a heartbeat. The instructor explained it to the assembled students. A secret realm had opened. This one was called Blood Prison Abyss. Level 10 to 30 entry. 872 people had entered across the previous 4 openings. Not one had come out. The information sheet said the realm placed extreme demands on health. I read it twice and made my decision. The next morning I told Instructor Lei Zhun I was going in. He already knew I was coming. He said I could take 7 days to think about it. I told him I had already decided and I was going tomorrow. He called the principal. The principal said there was no stopping me and that I seemed the type to come back alive. That morning, the crack was surrounded by a crowd. Reporters, family representatives, association personnel, all the students and teachers. My team was there. Yin Yin was crying before I even walked through. She told me I had to come back. I stepped through the crack. Inside was a dark red wasteland under heavy gray clouds. Blood smell in the air. A black palace in the distance. I walked toward it. A guardian eye on the palace doors spoke to me in my mind. 3 trials. Pass them all and leave alive. Fail and become part of the realm forever. I said start. The first trial was simple in concept. Kill 100 blood prison guards. Each one after the first would be 5% stronger than the one before. The first guard hit me for 500,000 damage. I hit back for 1,000. I did the math. To kill the first guard at 1,000 damage per hit would take 5,000 punches. The last guard by the end would be over 100 times stronger, meaning millions of health points to drain. I just started hitting. One punch after another, hour after hour. The guards hit me constantly. My passive skill recovered 100 billion health per second. They could never keep up. The problem was I could barely keep up either. My attack was only 1,000, and these things had millions of health each. I collected the blood pearls they dropped when they died, but did not need them. My regeneration handled everything. 100 guards later, my arms were almost too heavy to lift. The voice came back. First trial complete. Time elapsed. 116 hours and 47 minutes. Congratulations. You are still alive. Second trial beginning now. The second trial was called Blood Road. 99 rooms. In each one, a dried corpse on a stone altar. A blood blade beside it. The rule was simple and horrible. Pick up the blade, stab yourself, and let your blood flow. When the amount you shed matched what remained inside the corpse, it would open its eyes. Then you could take 1 drop of blood from its cheek and move to the next room. Stab too little, and the corpse would not wake. Stab too much, and you would die before reaching the end. I walked into the first room and picked up the blade. The moment it went in, I understood why people died here. This was not normal pain. It felt like something was reaching inside and pulling the blood out of me by force. Every stab was that feeling multiplied. I looked at my health panel. Each stab cost me 1,000,000 health points. My regeneration recovered 100 billion per second. I was losing nothing that mattered in terms of survival. But the pain was completely real. I stabbed myself 10 times in the first room before the corpse opened its eyes. I took the drop of blood and moved on. Room by room, the number of stabs increased. By room 30, my hand was trembling. Not from weakness. From pain accumulated over hundreds of strikes. I kept going. Around room 70, the corpses changed. They were no longer ancient dried shells. They were people. Recent people. One wore a Dragon City War Academy uniform. A badge showing level 28. He had died here with fear still on his face. One of the 872. I took his blood and moved to the next room. Room 91 held the one the reports had mentioned. Level 29. SSS, Grade Life Source Ability. The strongest health type awakener anyone had known. 300 stabs before his eyes opened. He had been the closest any previous challenger came to surviving. And even he had not made it through. The 99th room stopped me. The figure on the altar was wearing worn clothes. An old scar on the chest. I moved closer and saw the face. It was mine. The voice said the final room was me. To take the last drop, I had to use my own blood to match my own. I stood there for a moment. Then I put the blade in. 1 stab. 2. 3. I do not know how long it took. The pain had stopped feeling like pain somewhere around room 50 and had become something else entirely. By the time I was done, it felt like months had passed inside that stretch of time. 1,000,000 stabs. 10 trillion blood shed in total. My regeneration kept pace the entire way. The corpse version of me opened my own eyes and let a single drop fall. I took it. 99 blood pearls in my hand. The voice returned. Second trial complete. Time elapsed. 29 days, 5 hours, 22 minutes. You are still alive. Third trial beginning now. The floor opened beneath me, and I fell into darkness. I landed in an underground wasteland made entirely of bones. Mountains of them, stretching as far as I could see in every direction. The air smelled of rust and rot. The voice told me the third trial was simple. Walk out. There was no direction, no map, no time limit. Just walk until I died or found the exit. Then it told me my passive regeneration skill was sealed. My health would not recover on its own. I started walking. The monsters came quickly. Skinless red dogs at first, then bone-spike boars, then rotting lizards, then spider creatures with human faces. Everyone hit hard, and everyone dropped a blood pearl when it died. Each pearl could restore 1% of my maximum health. I collected every single one and ate none of them. My health dropped slowly but steadily. The monsters never stopped coming. I punched and stabbed my way through wave after wave, thousands of creatures across what felt like weeks. I stopped trying to count days because there was no light to measure by. Around what might have been day 7, I reached a mountain made entirely of bones that blocked the only path forward. It was covered in monsters. Every type I had already faced, all at once, flooding down toward me when I stepped onto the first bone. I stood my ground and worked through them from the bottom up. Halfway up the mountain, the lizards coated me in poison stacks that multiplied faster than I could clear them. Near the top, the spiders wrapped me in silk, and I had to wait motionless for hours while they chewed on me before I could break free and fight back. My health dropped from 10 trillion down through 8, then 7, then 6.5. I reached the summit plateau. 100-meter-tall armored beast was waiting. It nearly stepped on me with its first move. I spent what felt like another 2 weeks circling its feet, landing 1,000 damage per hit while it tried to crush me with every stomp. Its health pool was enormous. My health kept falling. When it finally collapsed, I checked my panel. 6.5 trillion health remaining. 800+ blood pearls collected. Still none eaten. I walked through the exit door. The bone wasteland vanished. I was standing in a golden hall. An old man in a blood-red robe was waiting. He told me I was the 873rd person to enter Blood Prison Abyss, the first to reach him alive. He asked how many blood pearls I had. I emptied my pockets onto the floor. 1,372 ordinary pearls, plus 1 Lord Pearl from the giant beast. He counted them slowly. Then he looked up at me with a different expression entirely. He asked how I had managed to not use any of them. I said I just did not use them. He stood quietly for a moment. Then he said the reward scale was tied to the number of pearls returned. He took the entire pile. In exchange, he held out a mask. Nearly transparent, like a thin sheet of still water. The item description said, "Formless mask, unique. Wear it and change your appearance, body shape, presence, and ability signature at will. Any person at level 100 or below standing directly in front of you cannot see through it." The man who built this realm had used it himself to move between powerful factions without anyone ever recognizing him. I held out my hand. The mask dissolved into my palm. I asked how to leave. He pointed to a white light door at the far end of the hall. I walked toward it and stopped once before going through. I told him my name was Su Lin. He said he knew. The 873rd. The only one who made it. He said he would remember me. I stepped through the light. From outside the realm, only 3 hours had passed. I stepped through the crack and stood in the daylight looking like something that had crawled out of the ground. Clothes in shreds, dried blood on my face, hair a complete mess. Yin Yin hit me first, then grabbed me and would not let go, crying and yelling at the same time. Han Bing stood nearby repeating that I was back, that everything was fine, smiling like someone who had been holding their breath for hours. Ingrin walked up and patted my shoulder and said simply that I had not died. Lin Yu stood a few steps back with red eyes and a small smile she could not quite hide. Wang Shiqing had come all the way from the capital. She pushed through the crowd, looked me up and down, punched me in the chest, and told me to remember I owed her a meal. Reporters swarmed me with questions. What had happened inside? What did I get? How did I survive? I said nothing, just that it was fine. When Chen Jiuzhou asked if I could share what I had experienced, I told him it was not convenient. He laughed and told everyone to let me rest. I went back to my room, stood in front of the mirror, and looked at myself for a moment. Then I tested the mask. My face shifted. Eyebrows thicker, nose higher, jaw squarer, a completely unfamiliar face staring back at me from the glass. I held it for a few seconds, then let it return to normal. I touched my face once, then went to shower. That evening, the whole elite class packed into a private dining room. Food piled high. Wine opened. Everyone talking over each other. Instructor Lei Zhun and the principal came by, and the principal put 2 bottles of liquor on the table and told me to drink. I drank. It was warm in a way that had nothing to do with the alcohol. 42 days in that place. 3 hours out here. And everyone was still here when I came back. I told them thank you as we walked back to the dorms. Yin Yin said we were teammates and did not need thanks. I lay on my bed later looking at the ceiling. The mask floated into my palm when I thought about it. Thin as a layer of water, barely visible. Change into anyone. Undetectable even at level 99. I put it away. There would be time to use it. Then my phone started going off. A message had arrived that made me sit up. The news hit my phone late that night. My father had announced he would attempt the tower's 89th floor that Sunday. If he succeeded, he would become the first level 90 awakener in human history. Every expert agreed that at level 90, with a 9th passive skill trial, his power would exceed the other 4 great fighters combined. Nobody would be able to stop him. I lay on my bed and thought about it clearly. He was the kind of man who never acted without certainty. If he announced it publicly, he had already decided it would succeed. And once he reached level 90, the first loose end he would tie up was me. Dragon City War Academy could not stop a level 90. The association president was only level 85. My teammates were level 10. None of them could do anything if he walked through the front gate. I could not stay here and let that happen. But more than my own safety, I could not let my friends get hurt because of me. If I was here when he came, everyone around me became a target. The only real protection I could give them was to disappear completely. I sat up and looked at my phone for a while. Then I took out the SIM card and snapped it in half. I wrote a short note, left it on the desk, packed what little I had, climbed out the window, and walked into the dark. I had a destination in mind. 3,000 miles north, deep in the desert. A place called Dark Knight City. No government. No identity checks. No law. 30 million people living underground. None of them registered anywhere. Criminals, fugitives, people running from powerful families, people who just refused to live by anyone else's rules. Nobody asked your name there. Nobody could. 2 days of travel later, I stood at the edge of a massive pit in the desert floor. Iron chains hanging down into darkness. A crowd of rough-looking people waiting silently around the edge. When a voice called from below, they all grabbed chains and descended. I grabbed a chain and went down. 5 minutes later, I was standing in an underground city that stretched further than I could see. Rock ceiling overhead. Salvaged mining equipment turned into buildings. Container boxes stacked into apartment blocks. Tens of thousands of people moving through streets that smelled of metal and smoke and danger. A one-eyed old man offered to sell me a map and reminded me to trust nobody, follow nobody, and enter no shop without thinking first. Then he vanished into the crowd. I stood there for a moment. Then I changed my face. Smaller eyes, flatter nose, wider jaw, higher cheekbones. Done in under a second. I turned my jacket inside out and raised the collar. Even Yin would walk past me now. I stepped into the crowd. Back at the academy, my room was found empty that morning. Yin tore the note open with shaking hands. I said, "Do not look for me." I said I could not bring this trouble to their door. I said I had a way to survive. I said I would come back when I could. Yin cried. Han Bing went quiet. Ingren's fists were white at the knuckles. Lin Yu stood with her head down and her shoulders trembling. In the Su family house, my father received the report calmly. He said I had run quickly. Then he gave the order. Find me, alive or dead. He looked at the calendar. 5 days until Sunday. He looked at the tower in the distance and said there was nowhere left in the world I could hide. Underground in the dark city, my new face merged into 30 million others. Su Lin was gone. Whoever walked these streets now had no name, no past, and no identity. And the man who wanted to kill him was about to become the strongest person alive. Dark Knight City never got dark. Neon lights everywhere, holographic advertisements floating in the air, the smell of roasting meat and gunpowder, and something sweet rotting underneath it all. I stepped over a severed hand on the street within my first minute there. The barbecue vendor beside it told me not to worry, someone would come collect it. I found a small and down a quiet alley, paid 500 points for a room, and bought an unregistered phone card from the store across the street. Then I lay on my bed and started reading. The Rift. Every city had one sometimes, but Dark Knight City had one that had been open for 23 years. Designation CN 0374. Entry limit level 30 and below. 600 plus people had attempted to close it. None came back. The government had given up and just let it sit there, killing around 2,000 city residents every year from the monsters it poured out. The inside was described as a massive tomb full of undead and shadow creatures. The most dangerous feature was infection. Anyone killed by a monster inside would rise again as one of them. I put the phone down and looked at the ceiling. Blood Prison Abyss had 872 deaths before me. This place had 600. Could it be harder than what I had already done? I did not know, but I needed the reward that came with closing it. Rift completion rewards matched Secret Realm rewards. Every person in history who had cleared one had become a major power, and I needed to get stronger. Fast. I went downstairs and paid the landlord for directions. He told me not to go. I was young. There were easier ways to live. I thanked him and walked east. The streets got quieter and more broken the further I went. Neon gave way to oil lamps. Clean pavement turned to trash-covered stone. After about an hour, a red tower appeared ahead. 10 stories of blood-colored stone with light pulsing through its cracks. A group of men in red uniforms blocked the entrance gate. One of them laughed when I said I was going in, then said something rude when he noticed I had changed my appearance to look like a woman. I ignored them and walked past. They let me through. People trying to close rifts were none of their business. They were just there to kill whatever came out. Inside the gate was a wooden door carved with twisted symbols. I pushed it open and stepped into complete darkness. My eyes adjusted slowly. Stone arches overhead, carved floors, skull sockets in the walls with blue flames burning inside them. Something moving in the distance. The door behind me was already gone. Just darkness ahead, and whatever was living in it. I had crawled out of hell once already. Come on then. The darkness inside was complete at first. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw the corridor stretching ahead. Arched stone ceiling 20 meters up. Skull heads packed into both walls from floor to ceiling, each one with a blue flame burning in the eye sockets. Thousands of them, all looking at me. I started walking. The stone floor beneath my feet began to shake. Through the cracks I could see dark shapes moving underneath, fast and restless. Then the floor exploded. Thousands of pale hands burst up through the stone. Some had skin, some were just bone. All of them grabbed for my ankles with iron strength. 5,000 damage per grab. The floor was gone entirely in seconds. Only stone pillars remained, each one spaced 50 meters apart, stretching into the darkness ahead. A voice announced the rules. 3 kilometers of pillars. Jump from one to the next. Fall into the abyss and die. Fail to reach the end in 1 hour and die. I jumped. In the air between pillars, the hands grabbed every part of me at once. Arms and legs and hair and neck, all pulling downward. Instead of fighting them, I used them. Kicked off one hand, grabbed another, swung forward, landed on the next pillar. Then jumped again before the hands on the pillar could drag me down. Pillar after pillar. Each time I fell into the gap, I let the hands slow me, redirected my momentum, and launched myself forward. Around pillar 23, the small hands all pulled back at once. Something bigger was coming. A hand rose from the deep, the size of a building, black as coal with blood-red fingernails like swords. It slapped me straight down into the pillar with 5 million damage. I bounced back up and it slapped me again. And again. And again. The pillar finally cracked and broke. I fell. The giant hand chased me down, slapping. The smaller hands grabbed from below. I was losing health from every direction at once. Then the giant hand swung upward again, and I grabbed one of its fingers. I ran up the back of its hand as it thrashed, using the momentum of each swing to climb higher. When it reached the top of its arc, I jumped. Landed on pillar 107. The giant hand sank back down with a frustrated roar. I checked my panel. Full health. The regeneration had kept perfect pace. 30 pillars left. A stone door at the end with a carved eye on it. The eye looked at me. The door opened. I walked through into red light. The second room was a forest made entirely of bones. Not trees. Bones. Ribs and leg bones and skulls stacked into hills, with new bones growing upward from the ground like strange plants. The tallest reached over 100 meters with dried corpses hanging from the branches. A voice explained the rules. Find and catch 30 bone demons hidden throughout the forest within 12 hours. The demons would not attack me, only run and hide. If I failed to collect 30 within the time limit, the entire forest would come alive and hunt me. The first demon I spotted was crouched under a bone tree, nearly invisible against the white surroundings. The moment I stepped toward it, it bolted. For bone legs moving faster than I expected, weaving through the terrain it clearly knew far better than I did. I chased it for 10 minutes and caught nothing. Standing still, I thought about it. The demon could run. It knew the forest. It had no reason to fight. but it had to make sound when it moved because everything here was made of bone and bone is loud. I closed my eyes and listened. There, a faint cracking sound from the left. I walked toward it slowly, without rushing. When I was close enough, I threw a handful of bone fragments in the opposite direction. The sound startled the demon, and it turned to look. I was already moving. I grabbed its back leg and held on. It dissolved into a pile and left a bone tile behind. I repeated the process. 12 demons in 3 hours. But after the 12th, things changed. The remaining demons had gone completely still, hidden so perfectly they looked identical to the surrounding bones. The only way to spot them was the faint blue glow from their eye sockets, which they had mostly learned to suppress. Then one of them made a different choice. It ran out into the open, turned, and screamed. Every demon in the forest answered. Hundreds of glowing blue eyes lit up at once. The demons stopped hiding and started surrounding me. At least 300 of them, not the 100 I had expected. I smiled. I walked toward them. They all attacked at the same time. I let them pile on. 8,000 damage per bite, dozens of them chewing on me simultaneously, but my health regenerated faster than they could drain it. I stood in the middle of the swarm and methodically punched them apart one by one. Each one dissolved and dropped a tile after tile. When the 30th dropped, every demon in the forest froze at once. Then they all shattered simultaneously, 300 of them collapsing into a mountain of bone fragments that buried me up to my chin. I dug myself out covered in white dust. A red light door had risen in the center of the forest. I walked through. The third room was a palace underground, wider than I could see, held up by columns carved with symbols. The floor was stone tiles, each one covered in names of the dead, tens of thousands of names. At the center, on a raised throne, sat a skeleton 10 meters tall wearing a rusted crown and holding a greatsword. Its eye sockets burned red. Around it stood 100,000 skeleton soldiers in full formation. Spears, swords, bows, mounted cavalry. All of them perfectly still until I walked in. The voice explained, "Defeat the undead king." To reach it, I had to go through the army. Every 10 minutes, the king would summon 5,000 more reinforcements. One chance. Die here and stay here forever. They all charged when I took my first step forward. The swarm hit me from every direction. 10,000 to 50,000 damage per hit, dozens landing every second. I stood still and started punching back. One punch. One skeleton destroyed. Take one step forward. Another punch. Another step. That was my entire strategy. Every 10 minutes, 5,000 new skeletons arrived. I was destroying about 2,000 every 10 minutes. So the crowd kept growing. But I kept moving forward. Slowly, steadily. After 4 hours, I reached the throne. The undead king jumped down. Its first sword strike did 10 million damage. I stepped back one step and punched its foot for 1,000. It stared at me. I punched its foot again. It went berserk and started swinging wildly. 10 million per hit, one after another. I kept stepping back and kept punching forward. Its health was dropping. Glacially slowly, but dropping. My health was dropping too, maybe 1 to 2 billion per second between the king and the army. My regeneration put back 100 billion every second. I was completely fine. After another 2 hours, the king started panicking. It tried to run. I grabbed its foot and would not let go. It dragged me across the palace floor, smashing through columns and crushing its own soldiers. But I held on and kept punching. Another 2 hours. The king knelt down and tried to surrender. I looked at it for a moment. Then I said no, and punched its kneecap until it cracked. It could not stand after that. It tried to call reinforcements, but its sword was gone. All it could do was watch me finish the job. When it finally fell, the whole palace began to collapse. Columns snapping, ceiling dropping, skeleton soldiers falling apart without their king to control them. A completion token appeared in the rubble. I picked it up. A light door opened in front of me. I walked through. The fourth room had no walls. Just darkness on all sides with pale shapes moving in it. In the center was a chair made of living red bone. On it sat a figure assembled from thousands of bones pressed together into a human shape. No face, no skin, just bone. 2 black hollow eye sockets staring at me. The voice explained the final rule. Sit across from the bone king and hold its gaze. The longer I lasted, the better the reward. Look away, stand up, or fall over, and it ends. I sat down. The moment I did, vision started. Blood. Mountains of corpses. A massive figure standing at the top of the pile, looking down at everything below it. It turned and looked at me, and I felt in that instant like I would stop existing. Then it was gone, and I was still sitting in the chair. The visions came back again and again, each time longer and clearer. I watched the bone figure's entire existence play out in fragments. How it started small, fought for centuries, built the undead army I had just destroyed, and finally sat down in this chair to wait. Waiting for the first person who could hold its gaze until the end. 1 hour. 3 hours. 5 hours. My eyes burned. They were watering and filling with blood. My head felt like it was going to split. The pressure of that hollow stare felt like something reaching into my skull. I did not blink. 10 hours. 15 hours. 20 hours. After 20 hours, the bone figure stood up and walked over to me. It brought its face within 10 centimeters of mine. We stared at each other from a distance where I could see nothing else. It spoke in a sound like wind through bones. "You are the first," it said. "The first to reach the end. You have earned my gift." It pressed its hand to my chest. A cold feeling spread through my whole body. Then the completion message appeared. Bloodbone abyss cleared. Time, 23 hours and 47 minutes. Choose one passive skill from 5 options. I read through them. Attack plus 30%. Critical hit chance plus 20%. A teleport skill once every 30 seconds. Damage reduction 20%. Or the 5th one, Bone Spike Fury. Reflect 25% of all damage received back to the attacker. The first 4 were all strong in their own ways. But for me right now, attack and critical hits would barely register given my low base damage. Damage reduction was useful, but I already had more health than I could spend. Teleport had its moments. The reflection skill was different. With this passive, any monster hitting me would take a quarter of what they dealt back as damage. A monster with 1,000,000 health hitting me repeatedly would slowly destroy itself. Even against opponents powerful enough to threaten me, if their health pool was less than a quarter of mine, they would die before I did just from reflecting their own hits. It also solved my biggest problem. My attack was terrible. This gave me a damage source that scaled with the enemy's own strength rather than mine. I selected option 5. Bone Spike Fury equipped. A golden door appeared in front of me. Behind it was Dark Knight City, neon lights still flickering in the dark. I stepped through. I stepped out of the golden door and turned around. The crack in the wall was closing. The blood-red gap that had been open for 23 years shrank before my eyes, edges crumbling, until it was completely gone. The wall looked like it had never been touched. 23 years. 620 people dead inside. Now closed. Behind me, the Blood Axe gang members who had been stationed at the entrance were all on their feet, weapons dropped, staring. The bald leader who had said something rude to me when I walked in was on his knees before I even looked at him. The others followed, all of them begging me not to kill them. I walked away without a word. Within 10 minutes, the news had spread through the entire Eastern District. Within half an hour, it had reached the rest of the country. The story pushed even the coverage of my father's upcoming tower attempt off the top of the feed. Anonymous female, mid-40s, medium height, dark jacket. 600 plus dead before her. She walked in and walked out alone. The rift closed behind her. The National Rift Response Team posted a wanted notice with a reward. The Awakener Association offered their highest honor medal. Dragon City War Academy said they would hire her as an honorary professor. The military offered her a position. I lay on my bed in my rented room reading all of it. They were looking for a middle-aged woman who no longer existed. I closed the apps and looked at my updated status. New passive skill acquired. Bone Spike Fury. Reflect 25% of all damage received back to the attacker. Now anyone who hit me hard enough would have to consider whether their own health could survive the return. Monsters that I could never kill by punching could now slowly destroy themselves just by attacking me. My attack problem was not solved, but it was much smaller now. I stood at the window watching the neon lights flicker. Then a new notification came in. My father had commented on the rift closure in a press interview. He called the anonymous woman a true hero. He said her power must be at the absolute peak of anything below level 30. He said the Sioux family would welcome her with the highest honors if she chose to make contact. Then the reporter asked if the rift news would affect his plan to attempt floor 89 in 3 days. He smiled and said no. Floor 89, he said. He would clear it without fail. I put the phone face down on the bed. 3 days. Standing at the window after the rift closed, I found myself thinking about those names carved into the stone floors of both dungeons. Tens of thousands of names. Most of them in writing systems I had never seen before. Not this world's language. Not any human language I recognized. The more I thought about it, the more unsettled I became. 100 years ago, the Sky Tower appeared without explanation. Monsters started pouring from dimensional cracks. Humans awakened abilities. Everyone assumed it was catastrophe followed by adaptation. But what if it was designed? The tower had floors to climb. Every 10 levels brought a passive skill trial. Secrets realms offered enormous rewards, but killed almost everyone who entered. Rifts poured out endless monsters until someone closed them. All of it looked like a selection system. A filter. Something built to find the strongest survivors and reward them heavily for making it through. And those strange names. Written in scripts no human used. How many different worlds had been put through the same process? I stood there, and the thought formed slowly. What if this was a farm? Scatter attractive rewards. Watch the strongest creatures compete to reach them. Let them grow powerful on the prizes they earn. Then harvest them at the top, the 99th floor of the tower. The finish line everyone was racing toward. What if clearing it meant walking into a slaughterhouse? The designers of this system assumed SSS grade ability was the human ceiling. 100 times multiplier. One successful rift or secret realm clear was luck. 2 was statistically impossible. They never planned for a billion times multiplier. That was the gap I could walk through. I had already cleared 2. Blood Prison Abyss and Bloodbone Abyss. Both with full health from start to finish. The system was not built to account for someone like me. I opened my phone and searched for level 10 rifts near Dark Knight City. 3 results. Frost Tomb, 35 kilometers north. Flame Hell, 28 kilometers west. Shadow Maze, 42 kilometers south. All 3 with 0 survivors across hundreds of attempts. All 3 restricted to level 10 and below. I was staying at level 10. I was going to clear all 3. Then I would find every other level-restricted rift in the country and work through them one by one. Every reward stacked on top of the last. By the time I was done, I would be something the designers of this system never imagined facing. Not a pig being fattened for slaughter. The one holding the knife. As for my father reaching level 90 in 3 days, I had the formless mask. I could be anyone, anywhere. He could not find what he could not see. Suchin could wait too. Everything could wait until I was strong enough that waiting was no longer necessary. I marked the 3 rift locations on my map. Tomorrow, the Frost Tomb first. I lay down and closed my eyes. Outside, the neon lights kept flickering, coloring the ceiling in rotating shades of red and blue and green. New rift tomorrow. Time to sleep. I left early the next morning with 2 steamed buns from a street stall and walked north for 2 hours through rubble, then gravel, then bare rock hills. The rift site was a frozen mountain. Not cold the way weather is cold. The entire mountain was coated in gray-white ice from base to peak, the kind of ice that looks like it has been there forever. A large cave opening halfway up the slope was sealed with a membrane of the same gray ice, breathing cold air through its cracks from dozens of meters away. 20 or so people were camped near the base. Their leader had a snake tattoo on his neck and demanded a toll before I could pass. I looked at him and told him to move or die. He did not move. I walked past him anyway. Nobody stopped me. Through the ice membrane, the tunnel stretched wide and tall into darkness. The walls were ice, but not clean ice. Packed full of eyes. Human eyes, thousands of them, all sizes, frozen into the walls at every angle. Some still had their pupils intact. Some were just hollow sockets. All of them facing outward. I walked past them and kept going. 20 minutes later, the tunnel opened into an underground frozen canyon so large I could not see the walls. Hundreds of ice spikes hung from the ceiling like swords pointing down. The floor was smooth, transparent ice with frozen bodies visible below the surface. Human fighters, monsters, and things I could not identify, all suspended in the moment they died. Under my feet was a young man in combat gear, level 10, mouth open, eyes still showing the fear from his last second alive. I kept walking. In the center of the canyon stood a single ice pillar 500 meters tall. Inside it was something with a human shape, but 300 meters high, half kneeling with its head down, covered in black shell and frost. It looked like it was sleeping. It also looked like it could stand up at any moment. The environment dealt 10,000 damage per second from the cold. My regeneration recovered 100 billion per second. I barely noticed. I walked toward the ice pillar and waited. The voice finally spoke. The voice announced the first trial. Walk 12 kilometers to the end of the canyon. 13,600 frost spirits would attack me along the way. I did not need to kill them. Every hit I took added 1 layer of ice mark. At 100 layers, I would be frozen solid for 3 seconds, during which every spirit nearby would pile on at once. The floor also had ice cracks scattered throughout. Step on one or linger near it for 3 seconds, and it would explode and drag me into the abyss below. Something worse than the spirits lived down there. I started walking. The spirits came out of the ice walls, hundreds of them. Translucent human shapes with blue fire in their eye sockets. The first one to reach me was a small girl in a flower dress. She pressed her hand against my shoulder. 45,000 damage to me. 11,000 reflected back to her. Her hand cracked. She bit me anyway. More damage. More reflection. Her arm split. She kept coming. I kept walking. The spirits swarmed me from every direction, each hit dealing tens of thousands of damage, while my passive sent back a quarter of everything to the attacker. They shattered themselves against me one after another, leaving piles of ice crystals on the floor that caught the refracted light in colors. Beautiful, actually. The ice cracks were harder to manage. I jumped over most of them, but once I clipped the edge of one, and the explosion threw me 20 meters across the ice. Before I could stand up, 100 hands punched through the floor and dragged me halfway into the abyss below. Down there in the dark, thousands of faces looked up at me, all of them with empty eye sockets and mouths stretched too wide. One face was at the front. Half a woman, no legs, just a spine dragging behind her. The most beautiful face I had ever seen, and the most wrong. She had been crawling behind me for kilometers. She smiled without sound. I did not try to climb out. I reached down instead and grabbed her face with both hands, fingers hooked into her empty eye sockets. She screamed without sound. Every hand holding me let go. I lifted her out of the abyss and held her up where the other hands could see. They all pulled back at once and disappeared into the dark. I dropped her. She hit the ice and shattered into crystals that caught the colored light. I kept walking. 11 kilometers. 12 kilometers. A frozen throne at the end with a 50-meter skeleton sitting on it, a crown of ice on its skull. I pushed the door open. The trial voice announced completion. 3 hours, 47 minutes. 3,462 attacks received. 241 spirits destroyed by reflection. 137 abyss hands. 1 abyss charm destroyed. That was her name apparently. The beautiful half-woman with the dragging spine. Abyss charm. I pushed open the second door. Second trial ahead. The second trial was a frozen lake the size of a small city, lit from above by light filtering through a crack in the ice ceiling and refracting into thousands of colored beams across the surface. In the center stood an ice sculpture of a woman with her hands together, head bowed. Behind her was the next door. The rules. Cross the lake without getting pulled into a mirror. 13,600 ice mirrors were scattered across the surface. Each one had a spirit inside. Walk past any of them and a hand would reach out and try to drag me through. Anyone pulled inside would face countless versions of themselves, all wanting to kill them. One chance to find the exit before being trapped forever. The floor also had ice cracks. Same as last time, but worse. Falling through these led to a larger mirror world with even more copies of me inside. I started crossing. Every mirror I passed shot a hand out at my ankles. 60,000 damage each grab, 15,000 reflected back. The hands shook from the reflection, but kept holding until I stepped on them and broke them. I worked my way across, leaving a trail of ice fragments that caught the colored light on the way down. Then I slipped near a crack. Just 1 second with my foot on the edge. The floor exploded and I dropped into darkness. I landed in a room made entirely of mirrors. Floor, ceiling, walls, everything reflective. Dozens of copies of me in every direction, all moving slightly differently. Then one of them stepped through the mirror surface and stood in front of me. My face exactly. My clothes. My posture. But the eyes were ice blue fire instead of normal. She said she had been waiting for me for a long time. She said she was waiting for me to die. Then she punched me. 80,000 damage. 20,000 reflected. A crack appeared in her hand. She kept punching. Faster and harder each time, her own body splitting apart with every hit as the reflection damage accumulated. After 50 punches, she was covered in cracks leaking blue light, and she finally stopped. She looked at her own shaking hands and asked why I would not die. I walked up to her and pushed her gently back into the mirror she came from. She disappeared into the surface like it was water. I turned around to look for the exit. Every direction was mirrors. I walked circles and kept returning to the same spot. The copies of me in the mirrors multiplied as I watched. Some were in corners. Some were in the hanging ice above. I had not seen them there before. I stopped and studied them. One of them moved its mouth. I studied the mirror copies until one of them mouthed the words at me without sound. "You will die here." I looked down at the mirror beneath my feet and stomped through it. I fell into a deeper space. This room had hundreds of mirrors arranged in a huge circle. In the center stood a figure built entirely from mirror panels, each one reflecting a version of me. It spoke in dozens of voices layered together and told me my blood meant nothing in the mirror world. Then it pointed behind me. One mirror began growing. It stretched from palm-sized to wall-sized in seconds. The copy of me inside had pure black eyes. It stepped through the surface. Then another came. Then another. 100 copies of me, all with those black eyes, surrounding me in silence. The mirror figure said they were pieces of me. My fear, my anger, my despair, the parts of myself I wanted to destroy. I laughed quietly. They all attacked at once. 100 fists hitting me from every direction. 100,000 damage per hit. 25,000 reflected back to each attacker. Every punch cracked their bodies a little more. Black liquid poured from the cracks and ate holes in the floor. They kept attacking. I stood still and let them. They fell one by one. The last one collapsed at my feet and looked up at me with those black eyes. Its mouth moved without sound. "Who are you?" I stepped on its face. It shattered. The mirror figure cracked and began to melt. When almost nothing remained, a single hand-sized mirror fell to the floor. Inside it was an image of a door. I picked it up and the door appeared in front of me. Real. Full size. Ice and blue carved symbols, just like the others. I pushed through and found myself back on the frozen lake. The thousands of mirrors were still there, but all empty now. No hands. No spirits. I walked straight to the ice sculpture in the center. A woman 10 meters tall carved from clear ice, hands folded, head bowed, a gentle expression on her face. I looked at her for a moment and thought about the beautiful half-woman from the first trial. Then the completion message arrived. Second trial cleared. For hours, 23 minutes. 137 mirror copies destroyed. New passive skill acquired. Taunt, Frostbone Rage. Effect, force all enemies within 100 meters to fixate entirely on me, ignoring every other target and every other threat, attacking me and nothing else until one of us is dead. Can be activated or deactivated by will. I stood in front of the ice sculpture and looked at my updated panel. 3 passive skills now. Regenerate 1% maximum health per second. Reflect 25% of all damage received back to the attacker. And now, Taunt, which forced every monster within 100 meters to fixate entirely on me and attack nothing else until one of us was dead. I held all 3 together in my mind. Turn on the taunt. Walk into a crowd of monsters. They all rush at me and hit as hard as they can. The reflection sends a quarter of every hit back to them. My regeneration recovers 100 billion per second. I do not need to attack at all. I just need to stand there. I said a quiet thank you to the ice sculpture even though I did not know who she was or whether she could hear me. The corner of her carved mouth seemed slightly higher than before. Probably just the light. I walked back through the mirror lake, through the 12-kilometer corridor of shattered ice fragments, and out through the frozen cave entrance. The 20 people were still there. Every single one of them. The tattooed leader's knife was on the ground, and he had not picked it up. He stared at me the way you stare at something that should not exist. I walked past him without stopping. When I was out of sight, he sat down heavily on the rocks and called his contact to report what he had seen. The forum exploded again before I was even back at the inn. 2 rifts closed in 2 days. Same woman. Same description. The internet started asking who could possibly do this. Then someone posted an analysis. The facts lined up neatly. Level 10 or below. Power that outstripped every SSS grade at the same level. Hiding somewhere with no identity checks. Urgently trying to get stronger. Choosing a city where nobody asked questions. The post ended with a question. Who does that remind you of? The comments figured it out in seconds. Su Lin, the missing god Great Awakener from Dragon City War Academy. Level 10. Absurd health. Being hunted by his own father. Disappeared without a trace. The theory spread everywhere. Some people pushed back asking for real evidence, but the crowd drowned them out. I read it all lying on my bed in my room at the inn and felt the quiet pressure of people getting close to the truth. Time to plan the next move carefully. Back at the inn, I checked my phone and found the internet had already figured out who I probably was. Someone had posted a careful analysis. Level 10. Surviving rifts that killed hundreds of experienced fighters. Hiding somewhere with no identity records. Urgently building strength. The conclusion was obvious to anyone paying attention. At the Su family house, my father read the same posts. He told my mother the analysis was almost certainly correct. When she asked if he was going to kill me, he said nothing for a moment. Then he said the reason I had to die was precisely because I was his son. I hated the whole family. If I kept closing rifts and growing stronger, I would eventually come back for revenge. He needed to stop that before it became impossible to stop. He called someone and ordered guards stationed at both remaining level 10 rifts near Dark Knight City. If anyone attempted to close them, he wanted to know immediately. He would come personally. He still planned to attempt floor 89 on Sunday. That was already announced publicly and could not be changed. The Rift Watch would run alongside it. At the association headquarters in the capital, Shun Jiuzhou held an emergency meeting. His conclusion was the opposite of my father's. Someone who could close rifts one after another was the most valuable person alive. Hundreds of thousands of people died every year from rift monsters. If I could close them permanently, the number of lives saved would be almost impossible to calculate. He sent people to Dark Knight City quietly to watch for me. He asked the military representative to bring in the strongest independent fighter in the country as backup in case my father made a direct move. I read about all of this from my bed. My father would be watching the two nearby rifts. If I went in, he would wait at the entrance and kill me when I came out regardless of what face I was wearing. If he became level 90 on Sunday, the calculus would shift even further against me. I could not use those two rifts. Not right now. I needed to reach the rifts in uninhabited territory instead. The closest ones were over 1,000 kilometers away. Walking would take 20 days of round-trip time. Too slow. I needed a flying vehicle. I opened the trading platform and checked prices. The smallest practical option with enough range was 3 million points. I had 174,000. I needed to grind. Fast. The monster territory around Dark Knight City went from low grade to high grade in expanding rings. Low and medium grade were too slow. I needed the high grade zone, levels 40 to 60 monsters. My damage output was essentially zero. My passive reflection was my only real weapon. Monsters attacking me would slowly destroy themselves. The harder they hit, the faster they died. All I needed was more health to stand longer. I checked the shop for level 10 legendary equipment. Armor adding 20,000 health. A ring adding 10,000. Together with my current gear, my total health would jump significantly. I set my targets. 5 million points total. Vehicle, legendary armor, legendary ring. I closed my phone. Tomorrow, the high-grade zone. The next morning, Dark Knight City was 10 times louder than usual. Reporters everywhere. People with sharp eyes and plain clothes standing on corners scanning every face. A crowd had gathered around an association representative who was announcing loudly that Shun Jiuzhou had come personally to honor the mysterious woman and that anyone who tried to harm her would be treated as an enemy of the entire association. Across the street, a military man with a voice like thunder was making the same announcement on behalf of the army. He said the strongest fighter in the country had personally declared his protection over her. Then I walked past a man handing out flyers with my face on them. The Su family. 500 million points for information leading directly to her. I rolled it up and dropped it in a bin. A gray-coated man across the street noticed that. I walked into a quiet alley and waited. He followed. He pointed out what I had done wrong. Everyone else pocketed the flyer. I threw mine away. A normal person seeing a reward that large would at least read it twice. My footsteps were too steady. I had not flinched when he stared at me. He said I was not a normal person. I stepped toward him until we were half a meter apart and looked him in the eye without saying a word. He backed up 2 steps before he realized he was doing it. Then he turned and walked quickly out of the alley. At the corner, he looked back once, saw me still watching, and disappeared into the crowd. I changed my face to a middle-aged man and kept moving. Too close. The Sioux family's people had sharp instincts. One wrong reaction to a flyer, and I nearly gave myself away. All 3 nearby rifts had guards waiting at the entrances now. Association people, military people, Sioux family people. Walking into any of those rifts meant walking into a trap. They would wait at the exit and deal with whoever came out regardless of what face they were wearing. I needed to reach rifts in uninhabited territory instead. That meant buying a flying vehicle first. That meant grinding for points. I walked toward the city boundary and the high-level monster zones outside. I left the city wearing the face of a rough, middle-aged man with bad posture and walked east for 2 hours. The terrain changed gradually. Black cracked mud became gray gravel mixed with fragments of bone. The sulfur smell got stronger. The ceiling of rock disappeared and gray sky took its place. Something had been following me since I entered the low-level zone. Gray-brown scaled creatures, heads the size of basins, vertical yellow pupils watching me from behind sand dunes. I kept walking and ignored them. By the time I reached the dead forest at the edge of the high-level zone, they made their move. 20 of them charged from every direction. Each one level 41. 500,000 attack per bite. 15% reflected back from my passive. The first one to bite me cracked its own jaw and kept biting anyway. I let them pile on and activated my new taunt skill for the first time. Every eye in the group went red at once. Then more came. From the dead trees, from behind dunes, from every direction. 30, 50, 100. All fixated entirely on me. All biting and tearing with complete disregard for the damage they were taking back. Some bit so many times their heads cracked open and their mouths stopped working properly, but they kept pushing forward anyway. Some shattered completely before they could let go. I stood in the middle of it without moving. Half an hour later, the attack slowed. The ground around me was covered in bodies stacked several layers deep. I climbed out of the pile and looked at the survivors. About 200 remained at the edge of my 100-meter range. The madness in their eyes was gone. Just fear now. I took one step toward them. They turned and ran. All 200, gone in seconds. I opened my panel. 347 kills. 50,000 points each. I stood on the pile of dead lizards and checked my panel. 347 kills. 50,000 points each. Over 17 million points from one swarm. I had not expected that. I spent an hour picking up the crystal cores they dropped. Each one worth 10,000 points on the market. Another 3.5 million on top of the kill rewards. I kept walking east. The terrain shifted from gravel to open bone fields. Then a long crack split the ground ahead of me, hundreds of meters long and too deep to see the bottom. Something was rumbling down there. A glow rose from below. A 40-meter lizard made of lava burst out of the crack. Level 48 elite. For million attack per strike. It breathed a river of magma over me. For million damage. 1 million reflected. I activated the taunt. Its eyes went red. It attacked without stopping for 10 minutes. Claws, fire breath, body slams, every skill it had. Each hit reflected 1 million damage back into it. Its scales fell off in chunks. One leg went lame. The light in its eyes flickered. Then it split apart and fell. 2 million points. Plus rare materials worth another 350,000. I kept moving through the high-grade zone all day. With the taunt running, every monster within 100 meters fixed on me and came running. I did not have to find them. They found me. 41 level lizards. 43 level sandworms. 45 level poison scorpions. 23 elite magma lizards. 1 level 55 Lord rank sandstorm scorpion. I walked back through the city gate at dusk covered in burns and blood with half my hair singed off. A guard asked what had happened out there. I told him I had just been grinding for points. Back in my room, I checked the full day's results. 2,105 kills total. 20 billion points earned. I stared at that number for a long moment. 20 billion. 20 billion points from one day of grinding. I opened the shop and bought the legendary armor and ring first. 200 million points. My total health jumped to 31,000 billion after the multiplier applied to the new equipment's health bonus. Then I bought a high-grade space ring for 5 billion. 1,000 cubic meters of internal storage. I emptied my backpack into it. The contents looked like seeds scattered in a warehouse. 10,000% recovery potions, for good measure. Another 10 million. The next morning, I went to the trading district in the western sector. A massive open market covering hundreds of fields worth of space. Every kind of goods imaginable. I changed my face to a 60-year-old man with a hunched back and deep wrinkles before going in. I found the aircraft section at the back of the market. I looked through several shops until a middle-aged woman showed me into a locked back room with a single vehicle inside. Phantom class. Custom built by the city's top engineers. Range 10,000 kilometers. Maximum speed 2,000 kilometers per hour. Defense shield rated against level 60 attacks. Built in stealth mode. 5 billion points. I paid without hesitation. The woman's hands shook taking the card. I tested the cockpit, confirmed everything worked, and stored the aircraft inside my space ring. The woman nearly fell over watching it disappear. Then I walked to the supply district and bought everything in a food store. Rice, flour, oil, salt, dried meat, dried vegetables, dried fruit. All of it. The owner calculated the total at 800,000 points and looked like he expected me to argue. I paid 80,000 points for all the food in the store. Then cleared out a water shop, a clothing store, a hardware shop, a pharmacy, a seed store, and a fuel depot. Everything went into my space ring. By the time I was done, my 1,000 cubic meter storage was packed. Enough supplies to last one person several years alone in the wilderness. I changed my face one more time and walked out of the city at dusk, an hour into the desert with nobody around. I pulled out the Phantom-class aircraft and climbed in. The controls were intuitive. I pushed forward, and the machine launched into the night sky at 1,200 kilometers per hour. 1 hour 30 minutes later, I was above a featureless desert. Sand dunes rolling in every direction under pale light. Nothing alive for as far as I could see. I landed behind a dune, stored the aircraft, and walked forward on foot. The rift ahead was not what I had expected. It was a stone door. 50 meters high, 30 meters wide, solid black with pulsing red symbols carved across every surface. Standing in the middle of the desert surrounded by a ring of shattered bone. Human bones, monster bones, and shapes I did not recognize. Some ancient and crumbling. Some still carrying dried flesh. I stood in front of it for a moment. A mechanical voice came into my mind. CN 0571. Sandstorm Dead Zone. Level 10 and below. 34 years open. 47 people entered. None survived. Last attempt 12 years ago. Did I want to enter? I pushed the door open. Golden sand stretched to the horizon on every side under a gray sky. Fine sand. Deep sand. The kind that pulls your foot down with each step. The voice returned. First trial. Sand sea survival. Stay alive for 24 hours in the desert. 137 types of monsters hidden throughout the sand, the wind, and even in shadows. Killing each one earns survival points. Reach 1,000 points and defeat the zone guardian before the time ran out to advance. Warning. There was no water here. No food. No rest spots. All recovery effects were halved. The voice went silent. I looked at the sand stretching in every direction. Recovery halved. That meant my passive regeneration dropped from 1% per second to 0.5%. Still 50 billion health recovered every second. I started walking.